I was granted another day of life, and I immediately decided to make it everyone else's problem. Nothing could hope to escape my onslaught, for raw materials, plants, and the local fauna were all at my mercy. Relentlessly, I harvested the materials necessary to start on my glorious conquest. I learned how to make the basic tools: stone pick, spears, clothes, the means necessary for domination. Then, with haste, I went on a hunt to stave off the inevitability of starvation. Mercy was a luxury we could ill afford at this stage in the game. I ran down the beach seeking out a place to lay the roots of my base of operations, when I chanced upon two Dilos minding their own business, and well, we can't have that now, can we? After dealing with the current issue, I stumbled upon this lagoon. It was perfect. So I got to work. I set down campfires and storage chests to give it that new base feel. I wouldn't use most of the storage chests, though. After staking my claim, I learned how to make arrows and a bow, as well as leather armor. We were on the up and up now, and to celebrate my technological advancement, I ran down the beach to test my new bow, at close range. Right up close and personal with some dodos. Don't question it. This was the sweetest victory in my beach bob life. In my jubilation, I fired an arrow into the sky as tribute to the Ark gods, and they, in kind, returned the offering by offering me 2 sources of meat and hide. It only took half the day, but I finally put some clothes on. I was tired of running around with my chiseled body on display as a possible meal ticket, and I was feeling kinda lonely, so I set out to make some new friends. I was running down the beach, and from behind me, I could hear the all-too-familiar sound of raptor feet. As I turned around to face the sound of terror, it ignored me. It ran by, shouting hysterically, and all I could make out was, "Dino, something king had awoken." Whatever that means. Before I could continue the journey, the raptor had changed its mind and wanted a taste of honey-glazed glam. In retaliation for his aggression, I bullied him and began spanking him with this club for having the audacity. Silly fool, I do the mauling around these parts. Eventually, the bola broke, and let's just say he wasn't too pleased with the paddling of his dino lifetime and retaliated. Luckily for me, a PT had landed that I could pass on the blame to, giving me the chance to recruit and collect my thoughts. Not finished with his aggression, he wanted round 2, bola, spanking, breaking, running. Eventually, we both agreed to call it a draw and parted ways for now. Hastily, I retreated to my camp to gather what resources I could to make a slingshot and more bolas. I was ready for round 3, so hurriedly I ran down the beach seeking him out and found him soon enough, attacking a dodo. Upon seeing me, he got really mad and charged. And you know how it goes. Bola, I fed him some Rocky Road, and it was good night raptor. He wasn't the highest level, but 85 would be good enough for me. The dodo that had been attacked by our slumbering raptor pal ran away and thanked me for saving its life. "No problem," I responded, as I filled it with arrows. A nearby PT had witnessed the commotion from the air and decided to land to have a closer look. With a well-placed bola so he couldn't fly away, I asked him if he liked rock music, and kindly yet respectfully he responded, "No, sorry, I'm more of a smooth jazz kind of guy." Respectfully, I showed him the error of his ways. After he went down, I got to work harvesting narco berries to keep them asleep for just a little while I went grocery shopping for meat. A little while later, our raptor friend was up and at him. I asked for his name. He said he didn't have one, so I decided to call him Shreddy Krueger. He just kind of looked at me and rolled his eyes, but he didn't protest. Shreddy and I had grown bored of waiting for this PT to tame, and agreed there must be a better method. After thinking for a moment, he mentioned that meat eaters like him loved prime meat, and I asked where I could get some. He told me that apex animals were the choice go-to. Carnos, Brontos, Stegos, Rexes, that kind of stuff. So, prime meat it is. I remembered earlier in the day I saw a Carno terrorizing the beach, so I set out to make a trap. It was a gamble, but it was faster than waiting ages for the PT to tame with basic meat. With the trap now complete, I told Shreddy to keep an eye on our winged friend, and I set off. The Carno was further down the beach now, bullying dodos I think I couldn't really see, and I don't remember. The pixels make it hard to tell as I'm editing this, which I do apologize for. I was in the midst of testing new recording software and it gets way better down the road, trust me. I fired an arrow weakly, and it missed. To say I was nervous would be an understatement. Eventually, after knocking arrows and missing a few times, one of them found its mark, and I got the brute's attention, but quickly lost it as it saw some tasty lystras to munch instead. I shot another arrow, and wouldn't you know it, yet another obstacle, another distraction. As the sun rose on day 2, I finally got the Carno's attention once again, and made a break for the trap as fast as my legs could carry me. I turned around to see if the Carno was still chasing me, and nothing. I continued to run, because something didn't feel quite right. And sure enough, he tried to dupe me. It lowered its head and bull-charged me. As I ran for my life to the safety of the trap, it lost interest, and went for a landed PT instead. Quickly, I doubled back and led it around to the trap. But the walls, they weren't high enough to imprison it. It started nudging me, and biting, and eventually I became impaled. Panic set in, and my health started dropping as I was nearly out of stamina. I ran for the safety of Shreddy, mounted him, and quickly ran off before the Carno could do some serious damage. I wrote the tamed PT off as a loss, but instead of attacking our sleeping friend, Carno pursued Shreddy and myself instead. I led it down the beach far away from the PT. Eventually, once the coast was clear, I went back to the PT's location and decided to hunt for prime meat another way. I thought you could harvest it from a packy rhino, but no, you can't. Hey, you know, I tried. Even after 1,500 hours of playing this game, I still learn new things every day. I don't know why I hopped off of Shreddy to harvest it. As I'm editing it, it seems kind of silly, but hey, you know, mistakes are made. Shreddy and I decided to try our trap again. And this time, I made the walls the correct height so the Carno wouldn't be able to run over him. As luck would have it, another Carno spawned in and wandered into view, right here. Shreddy and I understood the mission, and we set out to trap this meaty prize. We walked up purposefully and shouted defiantly, "Hey, Big Nose!" It didn't like that too much and gave chase, but I guess it had a change of heart because it stopped chasing us right outside the trap. So, we tried again. If at first you don't succeed, give up and do something else. Oh wait, that's not right, is it? No, try again. Yeah, that's the one. Try again. Yeah, that's the one. The plan was executed flawlessly. The Carno was trapped, and I got to work. Eventually, my bow did break, and I needed to repair it quickly. But, as luck would have it, or luck didn't have it, our PT was about to wake up. I had to act fast. Everything moved in slow motion. Quickly, I ran and harvested some narco berries. I threw the narcos into the PT, force-fed it, and the entire time I was nervous the Carno would break out. The walls were made of wood after all. I turned my attention to our guest and began raining arrows into it, turning it into a walking Carno pincushion. After swiftly defeating the foe, I hopped off of Shreddy's back and harvested our bounty. But in cruel fate, the Carno got the last laugh, because it didn't have the goods. I couldn't believe it. So instead of harvesting it fully myself with a pick, or a hatchet, I don't remember, I hopped back on Shreddy and harvested the rest with him. But, you know, the PT was about to tame, and we did all that work, did all that stress, wasted all those arrows for practically nothing. But that's Ark for you. I resigned to my duty and watched silently as the PT finally tamed. The Pteranodon was now mine, and in good faith I gave it a name that commanded respect, admiration, a name of ferocity and cunning, a name well known, Rodan. Shreddy, Rodan, and I returned to base, but the journey wasn't entirely perilous. The Carno we first encountered had radioed in for backup because there were now 2 of them, harassing the locals. So we stuck close to the water's edge and made our way to the safety of camp. After Rodan was tucked away safely, Shreddy and I hit the beach. We were out to bully some turtles and farm some sweet keratin to make a saddle. I wanted to get airborne as soon as possible, because walking was a drag, and, to be quite honest, really dangerous. We had found a few turtles, and after a quick but few disagreements, we had Rodan saddled up and ready for a test flight. We both were elated at the situation. The freedom of being skybound allowed me to gather precious resources, like metal and eventually crystal. We took a moment to observe the hustle and the bustle of Lost Island life, and surveyed our surroundings for dangers. There were Rexes everywhere, guarding some metal nodes that I wanted to mine, so I resigned that idea and went to another mountain instead. I pulled out my stone pick and started mining. And after some time, Rodan was about at his weight limit, and we both retreated for our camp. You probably can't see it very well, but at the time I noticed 2 Rex legs peeking out from under a tree at the other end of the lagoon. So without wasting a moment, Rodan and I took off to lure the beast away from camp, and most importantly, Shreddy. Boxes of metal can be replaced, but none of that could replace Shreddy. It was stubborn and didn't want to give chase. It seemed to attack everything but us. Eventually, we managed to lure it away, for now. But, much to my dismay, it had turned its attention back to our camp and began walking that direction. And wouldn't you know it, another Rex thundered across the beach. They began devouring everything in their path. Rodan and myself tried to lure them as far away as best we could. After luring the gruesome twosome away, Rodan and I retreated back to the relative safety of camp, and there I summoned a meeting. It was clear we couldn't stay at that lagoon for too long. It was far too dangerous, and overrun by Rexes. We all agreed that a new base location would be in order, and it was of the utmost priority. Rodan and I saddled up once again, and I told Shreddy to lay low while we lured the Rex pair away from the lagoon. It was now or never, and Rodan and I flew low to the sand to ensure the Rexes gave chase, and sure enough they did. We lured them into a Bronto, and hopefully that same Bronto would keep them distracted long enough to forget about our lagoon. The plan had worked, and all I could do was sit and watch as the clash of titans unfolded. As soon as the coast was clear, we both fled back to camp. And it was time to get serious. I placed a wood foundation, made a forge, and started cooking up some of the metal we had brought back. I crafted 2 mortar and pestles for narcotics, to make trank arrows, and before long, it was the start of day 3. The morning of day 3, I crafted a smithy to make metal tools and a crossbow. Having metal tools would allow me to gather crystal so then I could make a spyglass to see the levels of the wild dinos that surrounded us. As I waited for the metal to smelt, Shreddy, Rodan, and I shared a laugh at how we 3 met. Nature had made us enemies, but survival made us family. After a nice breakfast, the metal was ready. I crafted a pick and a hatchet, waved goodbye to Shreddy, and then Rodan and myself flew to a mountain to gather some precious crystal. There were still many, many Rexes, Sabertooths, and Raptors abound, so I lay low and began to gather. Quickly I hit the crystal and got the heck out of there. Triumphantly, I flew back to camp and crafted the spyglass, a very necessary tool for survival in every situation. I needed more teeth, so once again we set out to see what we could see. The 2 Rexes from last night were still battling that Bronto, and the old man was holding his own. One of the Rexes got folded like a lawn chair. The other one was still up and biting. But the other Rex had eaten the remains of its fallen comrade and became rejuvenated. So I didn't stick around to see the outcome. There was still much work to be done. At this point, harvesting berries, my hand was very inefficient and I was kind of growing tired of it. And I needed something more beefy to harvest berries for me. And what better than one of the many Parasaurus Trikes or Stegos wandering around. I saw this 140 female outside of the lagoon, and for some reason, I ignored her and went with this low-level male. I guess it's because I didn't have many trank arrows, and I was kind of in a rush just to get something to help me farm. After 3 trank arrows to its noggin, it was lights out for our chunky honker pal. As you can see by my running around, farming berries by hand wasn't ideal, and this Parasaur would alleviate some of the struggle, and soon I would have enough narco berries to knock out a bull Rex if I needed. In no time flat, our friend was up and ready for his first day of work. I took a moment to contemplate a name, and well, I guess Yo would have to do. I wasted no time in crafting Yo a saddle. Rodan was so happy he started doing donuts as we ran back to camp. And there, I saw it. Shreddy was under attack by a rogue Carno. Probably the cousin of the guy we waxed earlier. In a panic, I rushed over and mounted Shreddy to lay a prehistoric smackdown on this home invader. But in that moment, I knew in my heart of hearts that the time to move was now. I didn't want to risk making a raft because I didn't know if a leads or a whale, as they're called, would be lurking in the shallows of the beach. And I didn't want to risk losing my new friends to sea creatures. No, we needed more muscle. We needed feathers. Before I could finish my train of thought, a Nixie swooped down and hit Yo. Rodan didn't like that one bit and gave chase. As the body of the Ichthy fell into the waters, Shreddy went to retrieve it, but it got stuck in the air. I guess. Anyway, I needed an RG, and I needed one like yesterday. It would be crucial for our move, because it could pick up Shreddy, as well as Yo, and carry them to our new location. So I set out to farm the materials to make a trap. Rodan and I took off once again, and boy, let me tell you, I laid down the trap and got busy. After getting one's attention, and with a little finesse, we lured it into the trap and shut the gate. But the trap's bars were just a little too wide. Oops. Just to make sure, yep, too wide. Well, back to the drawing board. Okay, pillars this time. Well, that's a great idea, Glam, but what about the roof? Are you sure? Yep, Okay, third time's the charm, we got it this time, for sure. A few hatch frames more. This time it's foolproof. Well, that's great and all. But now how are we going to get out of the cage when we're in there with the RG? Okay, so let's take this slowly. Lure it in, walk out this side. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Mighty success. It worked. And so we gave her some nighty night arrows, and she went down. After a cheer of victory, we headed back to camp for a bit to harvest some narco berries. I'm glad I came back when I did, because no sooner than I had landed was when a heavy storm rolled in and covered the land in a thick fog with rain. It was dark, let me tell you. The thunder sounded like footsteps with a good pair of headphones. I was quite paranoid. So I stayed up all night, and I was afraid we'd be wrecked chow before the storm cleared. Eventually, the storm did clear, and the sun began to rise on a new day. Rodan and I took off to find some meat for our sleeping gal, until my eyes chanced upon some RGB lights blinking in the clearing below. And look at that! A whopper of a tech raptor! I'd have to be absolutely crazy not to tame this man. I swooped low and got his attention, luring him to the safety of the beach before whipping out some bolas and singing him a lullaby, to the tune of my crossbow twanging trank arrows into his nose. And boy, howdy boy, look at them stats. My boy was going to be crucial for the days to come. Okay, so some bad news. I lost half the footage for day 4, and the taming of the RG and the Tech Raptor, gone. Checked my hard drive, checked my recycling bin, gone without a trace. So I think I forgot to hit record. Anyway, yeah, so here they are. Full Heart the Argentavis, and Dinobot the Tech Raptor. Ta-da! Anyway, I need more materials to make Heart a saddle so I can get airborne and begin our big move. Shreddy seemed kind of jealous that I was taking Dinobot out for a spin, but I reassured him that it's only because Dinobot had more health, and I wanted him safe and sound here. I needed his ferocity in battle, and his unparalleled combat experience to keep Heart, Rodan, and Yo safe. Dinobot and I took off. We ran up and down the beach looking for turtles, and we found a few, but it seemed like they stopped spawning. Either that, or they have ways of long-distance communication. I don't know. Seems like they all got the memo, and didn't want a repeat of a few days prior. As we ran down the coast, I thought I saw something. Something big hiding on top of a cliff, waiting for a beach bob and a freshly tamed tech raptor to come closer. I pulled out my spyglass, had a peek. Yep, that's what I thought it was. I guess I'll just check the other end of the beach today. Hey, look at this moss chops. It's 130, and I could use one to harvest special resources later. I'm sure it's going to ask for something quite reasonable and easy to get, something easy to eat. Anyway, we found more turtles. Yeah, after half the day. Gave us a boatload of keratin. Finally, we were making some real progress. We decided to take a break and have a look over the ocean, and took a moment to admire the view. We also found this beefy female Rex walking in slow motion. Real chariots of fire, this one. Too bad I didn't have the means to tame her. She could have slow walked all over our enemies. Oh well. Our hunt went late into the night. Dinobot was starting to look a little drained, and I was growing quite tired myself, until we were beset upon by some ants. Normally this would be a bad thing, but in this situation it was great. We hit the chitin jackpot. Hurriedly, we rushed to camp to craft Hart a saddle, and that night we all got together and moved. Earlier in the day, I'm pretty sure when I forgot to record like a numbskull, Hart and I scouted a small island with a really cool rock in the center of it. That is where we would set up shop for the rest of our 100 days. First, I took Shreddy. He would be the first to set foot on this new uncharted territory. Then, I took Dinobot, so him and Shreddy could work out their differences alone, hopefully in peace. I told them not to rip each other apart. Then, as the sun rose, we flew into day 5. I returned to pick up our storage and loaded it into Hart's inventory, picked up Yo, whistled for Rodan, and flew across the sea to our new home. I was kinda relieved, because my dinos were safe, and I was fairly certain that big carnivores didn't spawn on the small island, and we'd have enough room to begin our boss dino operations. Mr. Shreddy told me about this guy called the Dinopithecus King. He was somewhat of a big shot around these parts, and I was vying for his crown. The Lost Island was big enough for only one unstable person, and I didn't feel like I wanted to share a throne. I reserved the rest of day 5 to building myself a nice little bungalow. I forgot to hit record for this entire building process. Please believe me, I did not use creative mode to do this. I just used my pick, my axe, and my hands. I'm tired. I think it's time for bed, in real life. I'd finish building the patio later. Probably. Or not. We're going to pick up the pace in the video now. The stage and the actors are set. If I talked about all the small details in great detail, the video would probably reach 7 hours or more. And that's a lot of editing, and a lot of voiceover. And I don't think anyone's gonna watch a small YouTuber for 7 hours like this. So, to remedy this, I'll only show the most interesting stuff and the boss fights. Feel free to say how much better at Ark you are than me in the comment section. I'll be sure not to read them. Day 6. I was being a lazy bones. I didn't want to get out of bed. I was trying to catch up on some rest when I heard that Shreddy and Dinobot were arguing in the yard. I ran out to tell them to knock it off. They were arguing about whose waifu was better or something like that. And I had to explain to them, you know, it doesn't matter what waifu you like. They're all bad. Just stop. Like, honestly, just stop. Anyway, I got to work creating a lot of narcos. It was time to think about what I wanted to use in the up-and-coming boss fights. And I wanted something strong. I had considered a Rex army, but those are bog standard and kind of boring. I took a moment to enjoy the warm glow of the kitchen as the narcos cooked, and I enjoyed our new surroundings. I walked the property. As the sun set on day 6, the Ark gods gave me a peace offering and a gesture of good faith in the shape of a high-level female pteranodon, and I wasn't one to decline such a noble offer. So, I bowled her and told her, I love you, and then knocked her out. Rodan was going to have a nice girlfriend, and I was going to have a nice imprinted BT mount. I saddled up on Hart and began hunting for some prime meat. Over on the mainland, I found this absolutely yoked 135 Raptor. And then I descended from the sky, perched on top of a rock, and then began to play the Alpha Raptor's head like a bongo with Hart's beak. Day 7. The sun rose and my fight with the Alpha Raptor still roared on. There were 2 of them, and the high-level one ran off somewhere, I guess. So I tagged this level 55. Hey, prime meat's prime meat no matter where it comes from, right? Anyway, I managed to erase it, and I flew back to base to tame the female PT. There we go. I'm on my way. I thought I had found a nice girlfriend for Shreddy. I mean, look at that, 145, who could pass that up? Hopefully that... Oh, is that female? Oh no, she's gonna die. Rip. Sorry, lady. But she got folded by 2 trikes on the beach. It wasn't good. It was not good. I tamed the female PT and named her Rodana. Rodan and Rodana hit it off right away. It was a match made in heaven, and I waited for them to give me an egg. I kept looking back to check to see if they dropped an egg. Hey, I'm not into this sort of thing, okay? I just really wanted a high-level Pteranodon. Really high-level, strong Pteranodon. I'd needed to travel around the island. Finally, an egg. I placed it in front of my fireplace and waited, and before too long, Rodanielle was brought into the world. While Rodanielle was growing up, I flew around on Heart, and I found a Moss Chops in distress from a Dilo attack, so I rescued it to see if it would like to join my team. I landed safely on the beach on the mainland, and surely it would ask for something easy. Something easy to gather, right? Something easy to eat. Anyway, later on at the other end of my property, I found a Moss Chops with a sense of reality finally. A Tintoberry. Can do. I tamed her up and named her Dog, I guess. Okay. Hello, Dog. She was really good at harvesting fiber. Getting it by hand kinda took too long and irritated me. I'm a very impatient man. You'll soon come to find out. I went out scouting and looking for the start of my boss dino line, and found this beauty of a 150 Rex. Like, holy mackerel, holy like, look at this. Look at it. It's big, huge, absolutely glorious. But there would be no way to quickly and efficiently move it back to my base, and I didn't want to build a raft. A common theme in this video. Cryopods were in order, so I went home, got on Heart, and I wanted to fly to the desert to farm mantis for their organic polymer. And I was flying around, fish started to fly, and then, oh no. Day 8, I logged in and fell into the ocean. I got it sorted though, and I headed to the desert so I could harvest mantis for their poly. After getting an adequate amount, something a little agreeable, I headed home and headed to a nearby supply drop, craft my first cryopod of the playthrough. I tested my bola skills on this ichthy, had a masterful shot, and then began gathering materials to make a trap for that 150 Rex I had found the day prior. I was also raising another PT just in case. Rodani. And he was being quite stubborn for his first imprinting, so I decided to take him with us in a cryopod, and I'd work on imprinting later. I know, I said I didn't want to use a Rex army, but I wanted eggs to make kibble in the future, and if push came to shove, I would use Rexes. Consider this an insurance policy. A little contingency plan, if you will. I flew to the back of the cave by the lake and began making the Rex trap. I saw this design from Captain Fat Dog. I'll link the video in the description. I hadn't made it in a long while, so I was going off of memory, and I'm pretty sure I messed up somewhere. I just got the gut feeling. Yeah, you'll see what I mean later. I left the cave, got her attention, and then promptly scolded her for a moment. Whoa, finish your homework. I'll see you in a sec, hang on. Eventually, I got her into the trap, and I started tranking her. Yep, right there. I made one of the pillars too short, and she kinda just walked out. That's not good. At least she was torpor running. If she wasn't torpor running, I'd have to just bail on the whole thing. But I was way too paranoid to dismount. Eventually, I worked up the courage to start tranking her again. And I got to witness her climbing skills because, holy, she climbed up the mountain. She climbed to the top of the cave. After she went down, I couldn't believe it. I mean, look at this. She's up the hill. Like, how? Rodanielle and I flew around looking for some alphas to get their meat. We found this alpha carno chilling on the beach, and well, I took it personally. This female's health stat was absolutely abysmal. But eggs, and if I could find a male, I could use the babies for leveling because baby Rexes had a lot of experience. Okay, now hear me out. It's faster than walking up and down the beach attacking wild dinos, and it was safer. Plus, I'm on a bit of a time crunch. This video is already 30 minutes long, and I need to cover 91 more days. I tamed the female Rex and gave her the name Otachi, and since I only had one cryopod, I needed to leave Rodani behind. Seeing as how this spot was relatively out of the way, I doubt any wild carnivores would wander back here to eat him. I potted Otachi up, and we rolled out to drop off our new Rex. I went back to Rodani, did some imprinting, potted him up, and went home. The look on Shreddy's face was absolutely priceless, and it was hilarious. I look at him. He doesn't know what to think. I knew I wanted a Maywing because they're one of the best transportation teams in the game. So, I flew over to the Highlands and stopped briefly to witness the brutality, until I myself was attacked. I flew further in as fast as I could, and saw this Spino airdrop into the swamp, and here was my reaction.
Holy mother of pearl. A pearl.
I am not ready to take her on yet, unfortunately. Let's get this Maywing first, and yeah, I'll come back. Oh, man. A 150 Spino. I cannot believe it, man. As I record footage, I tend to talk to myself a lot. Anyway, I found this nice 145 Maywing and started taming it. Yeah, baby. Hey, little buddy, you're gonna go night-night now, okay? I didn't use a trap because I enjoy the chase. You thought you could escape that easily, huh? Oh, you got another thing coming, pal. What? Oh, shh. Whoops. Oh, okay, we're good. Woo! Had me worried there for a second. Bit of server latency issues. Oh, man, that would have been bad. Woo! First Maywing, boys. I found a novice minding its own business, and you already know how I feel about that. And before long, Hummus joined the team. And to round off day 9, I tested my bola skills against an Ichthy in the dark. Day 10. Hummus and myself wanted to do a desert loot maze run, and I wanted to tame a cinema crops. I finally had enough chitin to get one after farming mantis in the desert a few days prior. I like to tame Sinnohs in the desert. In this area there were high walls all around where they spawn, but it wasn't without its own set of challenges. A lot of predators roamed around here, and weapons were absolutely necessary. Before long I started taming my first Sinnoh of the playthrough. I know it's day 10, but better late than never, I say. After some time, chasing this little dude all over the valley and body slamming some wolves, we welcomed Piccolo to the team. With Piccolo's help, the maze would be an absolute breeze. Sinnohs can fly over traps and other hazards, and we're all around great utility tames. I headed into the maze, and I'll show you what I got. It was at this moment I knew what I wanted to use in the Dinopithecus King fights. The often underrated and overlooked, yet humble, Allosaurus. After finishing the loot maze, you can run it again to get 2 extra drops. So, that's what I did. Second round, I found this absolutely spicy Fabby sniper rifle. Tasty. I went home and threw my gains into a storage chest, and didn't bother organizing it. This becomes a really bad habit later, you'll see. I flew back to the Highlands to tame another Maywing for breeding, until I stumbled upon this holy trinity. I went home to farm for traps, and then I'll just let you watch what happens on day 11. Ah! This is not how I imagined this going down. Why you know go down, billboard? I think we're okay. Any gigas? Any other allos? Yeah, we're good. Alright, let's get to work. The morning of day 11, disaster struck. You ever find yourself saying, I should have built a trap when you're playing Ark? This was one of those moments. I needed that high-level female to start my breeding chain and get mutations. So I played taming chicken with that female. I'd hop off of Hummus, shoot a trank arrow, hop back on, jump and fly away, and then repeat. My server started to lag really badly. Either that or it was my computer chugging along. I was hitting some heavy lag spikes. I fired arrows, and they wouldn't register the hit. The female would teleport right on top of me. I eventually became really frustrated and impatient. Instead of building more billboards like I did for the male, I decided to use my Sinnoh and Air Tamer. My Sinnoh's stamina ran low and I hadn't noticed. And well, yeah, to say I was upset would be putting it a little mildly. My first death in this 100 days. Before long I flew back and I saw the red text. Yeah, Piccolo bit it. I gathered my things and was ready for round 2. But the female that I lost Piccolo over decided to solo attack 2 Stegos. And well, I potted up the male that I had tamed and headed home defeated. I went back and collected Rodani and resigned for the day. Day 12. I was humbled and shaken. I'm glad I didn't make this a hardcore challenge. My first death of this playthrough shook me to my core. I needed a high-level female Allosaur to get my boss army rolling, and as I was flying around, I think I found her. She was quite magnificent. I tried to lure her away from the other 2 so I could tame her, but 2 Allo packs had combined into 1 Mega Pack, and after yesterday, I was absolutely not getting involved in that, and so I schemed, and I hatched a plan. There in the field, a lone Maywing. It was the perfect bait. She had become separated, and I finally sprang into action. After knocking her out, as I waited for her to tame, I did some sick donuts on my Maywing. After she tamed, I went home and introduced the 2 Allos. I named the male Fortunate Forba after one of my friends, and the female Aisha. Shreddy and Dinobot seemed to be getting along now. It only took the death of one of the team members. Before long, I was gifted my first Allo egg, the Silver Lining. Welcome to the world, little Durango. The rest of the day, I bred and raised my Allos, and I needed to get my farming dinos underway. Days 13 through 19 were no man's land as far as content goes. All it was just me staying around the house and raising babies and just farming. So, instead of showing every single tiny little minute detail and the greatest detail, I'll just give you the crash rundown of what happened. Day 13. I snatched a Doedicurus that wasn't expecting it from her mountain home, brought her home, knocked her out. Then, I went and got an Ankylosaurus to farm metal. Here it is. Welcome, Dodie and Mr. Slam. Day 14. First half of the day I was AFK, so here's the time lapse of 2 baby Allos growing up. I eventually got bored and wanted to do a maze run, just to get out of the house. I didn't get anything of particular note, but I found some nice riot shoe blueprints that I'd use in one of the boss fights. Day 15. I was stuck at home raising young. It's not that interesting to watch. Imagine doing this for 40 minutes. That's day 15. I eventually got bored of just standing around watching babies grow up, so I decided to make a workshop for myself. I needed a place to put my industrial forge once I got one, a grinder, a chemistry bench, a fabricator, an industrial oven, all that good stuff. So, on day 16, I spent the majority of the day constructing my new workshop. It took a little while. Through the power of a lot of caffeine, no sleep, and a dash of editing magic, you too can witness the fruits of my labors in a timely fashion. I'll put in some cool montage music from an old game or something. Day 17, I wanted some passive income, so I looked for tech parasaurs because they were easy to tame and they were very easy to raise. I needed a male and a female for my operations. I'd need their metal, oil, and electronics. And the less work I have to do, the better. I found this really high-level female, knocked her out, flew around. Eventually I found this male, had to fight off a few Argentavis and a Dilo that wanted a piece. But after a mildly stressful taming session, I got the male and headed out. Day 18, I needed a lot more crystal, and I was going stir crazy. So I took heart and headed out to farm some. I took Mr. Slam as well for some maximum gains. As we flew up to our usual crystal spot, it was being guarded by a Rex that wasn't too keen on sharing. So, me being the awesome dino parent that I am, I used Mr. Slam as bait and lured it away. I farmed as much crystal as Heart and Mr. Slam could comfortably carry and headed back to base. I made some glass for my workshop, for vanity reasons of course. I'm not much of a builder, but this workshop was mine and I owned it. Day 19. I was breeding dinos in the background between building my workshop. That hadn't stopped. I just don't want to make it the focus of this video because it's kind of boring to watch. I'll let you know some minor details. I had a few mutations, melee and health. I'll show a little bit of what happened on day 20, so you can get an idea of what my passive income looks like in Ark. It's cruel, I know, but you honestly expect me to go out and farm my oil, metal, and materials to make electronics? I actually did go out to farm though, and note to self, if I ever revisit the Lost Island in a future episode, I absolutely need to tame Mantis for passive organic polymer. I flew my Maywing to the desert, switched hard out to take care of the muscle work, and then I would switch back to my Maywing and travel home. It was a fast little system that I came up with. As much as I love my RG, she wasn't the fastest of flyers. After I farmed a little bit, I returned home and crafted some pump shotties just to make me a bit more powerful. As if I really needed it though. I waited for some tech para babies to grow so I could make maximum resource gains. Plus, it gave me more time to bond with Shreddy. I also accidentally, this dodo. Oops. Finally crafted a generator and a fridge. And got them placed, looking pretty. Day 20. Today, I was feeling quite froggy, so I decided to jump. I farmed up the resources to finally tame that 150 Spino weed found in day 9. She was quite fussy and didn't want to cooperate much, but she was polite enough to let me set up this trap. Using 4 stone dino gates, and look at that. Getting her in was as smooth as butter. It's as if destiny itself proclaimed, "Here, Glam, here, for you, anything." So yeah, I started tranking her. We began our dance macabre. But I saw something wacky out of the corner of my eye. Did you see that? I said a PG-13 word. I hopped on my Maywing to lure it away, and I managed to let it eat some other dinos down the beach. And not me, so I consider it an absolute win. Say, who'd win in a fight? A Bob and his Maywing? Or a new kid on the block, Super Predator? Watch this. I'll show you how to slay a Kakaro with a Maywing. This works with Yigas too, by the way. Viola. Instant Gigaheart. I'd use it later for the Alpha boss fight. So I kept it safe and sound. Probably threw it in a chest and forgot about it, now that I'm rereading the script. Hummus earned a new title from me. Hummus the Brave. For his unwavering courage in the face of death. It took all day. As night fell, the Spino tamed, and I called her Scorn. We flew home and waited for day 21. On day 21, I decided now was the time to go get a wyvern. It would make me feel pretty neato completo, and it was a goal of mine to eventually have one of every kind of wyvern on this playthrough. So I saddled up on Hummus and flew to the wyvern trench. There, I masterfully maneuvered my Maywing from malicious mothers and flew into the trench once it was safe to do so. But, unfortunately, all of the eggs there were kind of dookie. I really wanted a high-level fire wyvern egg. Sure, lightning was cool and all, and poison had its uses, I guess, but fire was my favorite. There was just something so noble and old school about it, you know? After flying around and being disappointed, I gave up and I tried my luck over in the ice wyvern trench. And there, I was yielded with success. I found this thick unit of an egg, 155. I returned home and made a very paltry amount of torches to hatch it, and eventually, I was gifted little Rhymefang. I grew extremely tired of hatching babies in my small house, so I decided to finally upgrade. I began building a dedicated hatchery, and as I was doing this, I imprinted Rhymefang on the side. This process took all of day 22. And yes, I do have very high boosted rates. I didn't have to go out and get wyvern's milk. I recently returned to Ark after a humongous break. I'd say about 6-7 years. I've done the vanilla thing, and this ain't it, Chief. I cannot wait around 4 days for this little bad boy to grow up. I absolutely can't. I'm sorry. So if some of you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. Day 23 was more or less the same. I continued my work on the hatchery, and I had a neat idea to put air conditioners in the floor, and I needed a lot of them. So I went out to farm some crystal, and as soon as I landed, 2 Argentavis decided to jump me and try and take my wallet. Both of them, quite literally in the physical sense, got bodied by hummus. So, in recompense, I took their crystal, and I went home. You'd think they would learn at this point. On day 24, Rhyme Fang finally grew up, and was ready for our first flight. We both went out hunting alpha predators, just a father and son bonding over wanton massacre. It was beautiful. Today, however, we had a mission, and that was to tame a Dinopithecus. These rosy-cheeked mandrill of massive size would aid me in procuring artifacts from caves. Basically, while you're riding one of these bad boys, these foul-tempered friends, if you will, nothing would dare attack you. I needed that kind of leverage in the days to come. To do as little work as possible. I'm a very lazy person. After making this female's family go away mysteriously for a moment, I proceeded to offer her some mutton, and she eventually agreed. Before long, Master Cheeks joined us. We just kind of left her kid to fend for itself. Whatever, it's cool. This Rex looks like a nice babysitter anyway. Well, peace out. Later, kid. Days 25 and 26. I used them to gather artifacts from the caves around the island. It was finally caving day. I needed some artifacts that lay hidden in the caves to initiate the Gamma boss fight. That's right, we're doing all three, baby. Gamma, Beta, and Alpha. No brakes on this pain train. I started out with the artifact of the pack. It lay dormant in a cave full of creepy crawlies, but Master Cheeks was used to fighting big bugs, so it was a breeze, honestly. After getting my hot little hands on the Hunter artifact, it was time to leave this place. As soon as I headed for the exit, I ran into something a little unsettling. I think I'll find another way out. Next was the artifact of the Hunter. It was in the neighborhood, so I decided to strike while the iron was hot. It was dark, like really dark. I could barely see anything. I was operating on pure instinct. But I found the tunnel that led to the artifact, and got the heck out of there as fast as I could. Out of all the caves in Lost Island, this one was the creepiest. Day 26. Next up was the artifact of the Cunning. I flew to the southern cave and got to work. This one is my favorite cave. The designs in here are really cool and it had a very awesome aesthetic. A sunken ship lay atop a fissure. How'd it get here? I don't know. It's Ark. Nothing makes sense. After navigating the maze-like cave, we're carefully inching our way towards the prized artifact. Ever slowly. Carefully and precisely, we hopped over. Unfortunately, I got webbed by a spider, and Master Cheeks took that personally and dove headfirst off of a cliff, stranding me. Eventually, I worked up the courage and took the leap of faith and immediately got webbed on my descent. Luckily, Master Cheeks was at the ready and proceeded to clobber my assailants. After that little kerfuffle in the previous cave, we wanted the artifact of the Sky Lord, and it wasn't too far away from the artifact of the Cunning, so we decided to boogie. This cave had a lot of bugs in it. And no, not those typical Ark kind, like actual bugs, like Insect City, USA. I stumbled upon the artifact of the Sky Lord, and me being paranoid checked my corners. I didn't want to get jumped by an 8-legged freak. Then I nabbed the artifact, then as quickly as we arrived, we left. Do you hear that? Off in the distance. Oh, that's the sound of another quick maze run. Since I'm out and about. First crate, baby. A really nice assault rifle. Thanks, Ark. After the maze run, we called it a day. After a huge amount of farming, I finally crafted the industrial forge after 27 days. I gotta say, it was looking mighty fine in the workshop, and I wasted no time getting some metal smelted down. That was literally all day 27. Just gonna move on. Days 28 through 30 were reserved for getting my aloe line looking pretty. I wanted to bring in at least 15 fully imprinted aloes with a high melee and high health stat, so I was very meticulous on who made the cut and who didn't. By day 30, I was going insane, so I decided to go out and find Master Cheeks a boyfriend, a partner in crime. I wanted an imprinted Dinopithecus for caving, and for just because reasons, I guess. I took Rhyme Fang and headed out, and we found this absolutely shredded 145 male, and we started to tame. It was a mighty success. At first I named him Keys, but eventually I decided the Arbiter would be better, and probably be funnier. So I named him Arbiter down the road. Days 31 through 34 were dedicated to, you guessed it, raising my army and vetting out the ones that wouldn't make it. To get an idea, check this out. Honestly, I wish there were more to talk about, so I'm just going to skip ahead to day 35. I started the day off right, with another loot maze run for breakfast. After that, I decided to do some quick cardio, and possibly the dumbest thing I've ever done in this playthrough. I tempted fate. I guess I got too comfortable with living the status quo. Decided it was time to get a Magmasaur egg. It wasn't going very well. I had to run away a few times. They were very accurate with their molten spit attacks somehow, like they had hit tracing or something. I tried luring them from the cave, but it seemed as if one left, another would immediately spawn in and take its place. Honestly, I didn't really need a Magmasaur, I just wanted one for the bragging right, you know? Pride before the fall. I managed to snatch an egg, but I stupidly decided to double down and eat it. For some reason, even reading this now in the script, it makes me mad. I should have just... Okay. But one thing you need to remember is the house always wins. A Magmasaur managed to land a 1 in a million molten spit on Hummus and cooked him alive, stranding me on the volcano. In a panic, I ran and fell to my doom. That makes death number 2 in this playthrough. I flew over on Rhymefang to deliver some cold justice, and proceeded to immediately get cooked. And that was death number 3. Day 36. I became the very definition of insanity. I saddled up on a PT, flew to the volcano, and Rhymefang was getting broiled by this Magmasaur as I speak. Luckily, I flew in and whistled for him to follow. Put him on passive, and we escaped with our lives intact. I fed Rhymefang some meat and went into the cave to collect my stuff, but a Magmasaur spit against the wall, turning me into a smoked glam. At this point, I was 100% ready to just throw in the towel. I lost Hummus. Rhymefang almost died. I was about to write all that stuff off as a loss, you know? Go home with my tail between my legs. But Mama didn't raise no quitter. I flew back and whistled for poor Rhymefang and left the cave in haste. I wasn't in the mood to funk around and find out. I left Rhymefang in a safe spot, mounted a PT, and managed to barely pilfer this Magmasaur egg before going full send and grabbing my stuff. I panicked because the PT was over-encumbered as molten spit was flying my way. I had to get rid of this really nice Giga saddle, but I wasn't going to tame one this playthrough anyway. I dropped some treasure and got the heck out of Dodge. We all flew home in silence. Before I forget, I also managed to snatch another Magmasaur egg on my way out. I forgot to talk about that in the script. Alright, let's go home. In day 37, the Magmasaur hatched, and I named her Cinderella. I also accidentally, some baby aloes. Big green numbers make the brain feel happy. Here's a look at all of my 00 females. They're a blank slate that will bring in new mutations. In Ark, your dinos going full-blown Alabama mode isn't a bad thing. Making babies hook up with parents is necessary to making powerful boss dinos. I didn't make this game, don't yell at me. I was finally emotionally healed from the loss of Piccolo, and I decided it was time to go find another Sinnoh. I found this neat little 145 and started the taming process. It's not too bad. Finally, after some time and patience, and a few terror birds, it was mine. I didn't bother naming it, because reasons. To celebrate this victory, I went on a maze run, another run, and then we flew home into day 39. So this is it. This is what I did today. Day 39. Moving on. The big day 40. You want to hear a really loud noise? Check this out. As much as I love aloes, their footsteps are starting to drive me a little crazy. I'm sorry if these days seem really short and brief. Most of these Ark 100 Days videos are just spent raising young and preparing for the grand finale. There's not much I can do. I can remove it, but then it would just be Ark 25 Days. I was going batty from listening to the constant thundering of baby aloe feet, I wanted a new Maywing. Nothing could hope to replace hummus, but I needed a faster way to go hither and dither across the island. I loved Rhymefang, like my own virtual son. He practically was, but he was also very slow. Mighty, but slow at flying, you know? Anyway, I found this 150 Maywing in the Highlands, and I took a moment to appreciate the quality and the rarity of such a find. Also, I got a really good long neck rifle from this maze drop. I wanted to test it out, so here we go! I ran to Rhymefang thinking this was going to be a long chase. Turns out the rifle is a one-hitter quitter. It was immaculate. I flew around looking for some ovis to get some mutton, and well, just watch. My pain is eternal, and my suffering is deep. I genuinely thought it was an ovis. I still cry when I review this footage, man. After searching high and low, I finally found this gosh darn ovis. I fed it to the new Maywing. I now crown thee Optimus Prime, after one of my favorite beverages. And I'm also a little biased. I like Transformers, if you couldn't tell. To celebrate this absolute win, you guessed it, did another maze run! I found this insane Ascendant Flak Helmet BP for the Dinopithecus and myself. I wanted to do something different instead of mindlessly running through this maze, so I tested this trank gun against a scorpion, I guess. Okay, come on, Glam, let's get a move on. At this point, I was going insane. I was talking to myself on the flight home. A death-defying tale of hardship, romance, and suspense. What you see in this video will shock you. Boop, beep, boop. Gonna go raise more babies and go insane. It finally arrived. I threw all my booty into this chest and forgot about most of it. Every great army needs an equally great leader. So today, on the day of 42, I set out to tame a Tyrannus. I took Rhymefang out to stretch his wings and help me with some muscle. The first duty I saw was kind of wimpy, and he didn't make the cut. Sorry, Charlie. I decided to tame this mammoth on the side since I was in the neighborhood and I needed more wood. I flew around a bit more until I saw an immaculate 150 female Yudi. 2 150s in a row. I went out and bought a scratch ticket that day. I didn't win anything, but what I did win was some wisdom. Don't go out and buy scratch tickets. After dealing with her henchmen, it was time to get to work. No traps, just man, super dart rifle versus Yudi. I potted up Rhymefang and safari tamed this bad mamma jamma. This time, I was smart enough to pump my Sinnoh's stamina. We weren't going to have that little mistake again. We were flying high, and our battle raged into the night. She started torpor running, and this Rex was also testing its 6 spins. Heel toe it, my man. Finally, she went down. As she lay there slumbering, night fell. Rhymefang and I did a safety sweep of the area. I couldn't see anything, so I laid down a few torches. I was only attacked by one pack of roving wolves, too, I'll have you know. I threw some meat into her inventory and started the taming process. Things were going well until my old man fingers slipped, causing Rhymefang to spit ice all over her, trashing her effectiveness. I was stunned and didn't know how to proceed. So I eventually just decided to let her wake up. I took the meat away and found something else to do for about an hour. I returned the next day with Optimus, and we kept a careful eye on this lady. I got to know some of the locals, and even made a new friend.
Couple of dudes palling around in the snow biome on Lost Island. It's Wild Rex level 55 and Graham.
Eventually she woke up, and we did some safari-style taming once again. This time, I led her off the side of a cliff into the safety of the valley below. And before long, it was lights out once again. But a Rex was in the same valley. I landed and punched its leg pitifully to get its attention to try and lure it away from the freshly downed Yudi. I was playing defend the asset. I led the Rex away, but this dang old gosh darn Phiomia was mucking up the works. I suppose I could have tranked it and just let the Rex eat it, just to save all this time and energy. But it was in the heat of the moment, and I was operating on pure instinct. I have had enough of this Phiomia, so I unpotted Optimus and bodied some Microraptors. But one dismounted me right next to the Rex. I only freaked out for just a moment. As I was being chewed on, I came to and ran away, mounted Optimus very quickly, and sent this Rex packing. As I waited for the UD to starve out, I flew around looking for some Ovis. I want this to go absolutely perfectly. Eventually I found one, and flew back under the cover of darkness, and by the morning of day 44, she was up and ready to scream. Day 44. I stretched my legs, took a deep breath, took the plunge, and did another maze run. This time I wanted to break my previous record. First drop was literal garbo. A lance? Seriously? Then I got the most ridiculous bow I've ever seen in my life. Another Ascendant Giga saddle. But I didn't want a Giga this playthrough, so this was crap. And another Mantis saddle. Great. The Gamma boss fight was coming up, and my troops were armed with primitive saddles. I needed a really good BP for Alpha, for sure. Beta, I'm not so sure about. So after the first run, I headed in once again. I hung out with the house owner. After my run, I found this 145 Prolovia, and I figured, why not? So I safari tamed her. I didn't really want one, but I just kinda let it be. I played Snake Whisperer, and took their meat for the Prolovia, handed over the goods, and disrespected my surroundings because I could. Things were going good, until this Capro decided to pull a Batman and enact vigilante justice to stop my reign of terror. After that, I went home and defended Dog. I tried shooting it with a dart gun, but Ark being Ark. And then, to round off the day, I decided to level Shriek. I named the UD Shriek, by the way, not Scream, or whatever I named her. Day 45, can you say Maze Run? At this point, the Prolovia tamed. I didn't know what to name her, so I just kinda went with I guess. I went home and tested my drum skills on the Mammoth, too. Day 46. I needed a medic, and what better than a Daeodon or a Snow Owl? I opted in for the Snow Owl option, and so I set out to tame one. I knew just the spot for some easy access to Snow Owls. That wasn't the snow biome. Ain't nobody got time for that. I headed out to get one. I also wanted to find Scorn a boyfriend too, for reasons. Spino Babies did give a whole lot of EXP. I just needed a low-level male for this to work. I landed in the redwoods and potted up Optimus and started blasting. This dart gun is absolutely bonkers. I know it's a low-level Spino, but wowie. I was a bit scared to land. This was the redwoods after all. I didn't want to have my skull shattered by a Dinopithecus troop, or end up as something's lunch, so I was extra careful. I left our Spino buddy to go find some mutton, and find some mutton I did. As I was tending to him, this gosh darn Pago stole my gosh darn trank darts. I dealt with him street style, but before I could gather my stuff, I was attacked by a Dinopithecus troop. I just wrote the darts off as a loss, and got out of there. Sure, it's an expensive loss, but I got what I came for, so it's whatever. I mean, look at what I was dealing with. I flew home, made more darts, and flew over back to the volcano with Rhymefang this time. I found this beauty of a 145 Snow Owl, set Rhymefang to passive, and got busy. We both danced merrily, and I masterfully dodged her attacks. Well, most of them. Eventually she started to torpor run, or fly if you want to be pedantic about it. So I gave chase, and as soon as I hit the ground, look at all of these Microraptors. I flew back to Rhymefang and was promptly followed by normal raptors. Their mistake. They were led by this Alpha, which we promptly ate. And then I defended the area and tamed Sleet the Snow Owl. The rest of the day, I spent hunting Theres for their claws. Day 47 was a slow day. I got to work healing Shriek's insane health pool. Like, it was insane. Like, literally nutty. This literally took an entire in-game week. Like, holy moly, it was nuts. I made an indie grill. Finally. I was tired of eating berries and raw meat like some kind of animal, some kind of caveman. Cooked meat would be nicer on my tummy. The rest of the day, I selected the best of the best to join my army. And the rest, well, on day 48 I was leveling my dinos and I needed double XP, so I enlisted the aid of this Lystrosaurus. These little dudes give you boosted EXP rates if you pet them, which is very handy for this leveling method. I named it EXP, baby! I threw her into the Thunderdome and leveled like a true champion. The results speak for themselves, I think. Over 1,000 in melee and about 60 to 70,000 in health, minimum. These owls were the strongest dinos I've ever bred in Ark, and I gotta admit it made me a little giddy. I found one of the baby Spinos that had escaped the EXP gains from a while ago, sitting in the water, so I imprinted it, leveled it a wee bit, and let it loose on an alpha megalodon for giggles. Battle seemed kind of one-sided until the Spino pushed the Mig up onto land. I thought he had it in the bag, easy win. Nope. He choked at the last minute. The Meg got free and finished him off. Day 49 was for leveling, and another maze run just for good measure. I'm on that grind set. In the deepest part of the dungeon, I found the absolute wackiest pump shotty I have ever found. It was truly the Excalibur of this playthrough. And with it in my grasp, I would deliver sovereign justice to these lands and sweep them clean of the wicked. Day 50. I went to the desert to get more organic poly, and I wanted to spend more time with Rhyme Fang, so I took him along. Things were going great. I took a Titanoboa for the ride of its lifetime, and then I saw the sand shifting below, and I, Glam, not one to turn down a challenge, engaged. We fought this worm foe head-on, and Rhyme Fang had some big numbers. The Deathworm dropped this prod, and I wanted to go test it. Turns out they're not that good. Awful, even. I made some riot gear and concluded day 50 with some leveling. Day 51, I needed a prep for the up-and-coming Gamma fight, so I made ammunition. I had dinos littered all over the shop, and I decided to organize, and began the long healing process for my soldiers. I leveled some more, and closed the day out. I spent the next 2 days healing and preparing for the upcoming fight. I honestly was really nervous. What if we wiped? What if the video ended there and then? Day 55. Would I finish the story strong, or just be another washed up small channel that couldn't hang? These thoughts plagued my mind as I sat atop my snow owl, healing dinos slowly. The doubt was drilling into my soul. But I eventually pushed those doubts away. I would finish these 100 days strong. Dadgummit. I owed it to myself, to Shreddy, and all of you watching. If y'all are still watching at this point, comment something cool like Oreos or something. I don't know. I thank you for coming with me this far. I know it's been a long trip. The eve of war was upon us. I began the war chant, lined up the aloes, fired off flares of defiance. I was no longer Glam of Catgirl vibes. I was now Glam, War Chief of Catgirl vibes. The burden of responsibility weighed heavily on me. I took my fears and doubts out on those war drums that night. I played them with fury and purpose. Those first few days on the beach seemed so far away now. I was just another beach bob, destined to stop playing after a few days. But now I was a force to be reckoned with. I potted up the troops and headed to the Blue Obelisk. I cryo-sicked them for the day ahead. I returned home and made some final preparations. It was finally here. The Gamma Dinopithecus King boss fight. We were all gassed up, hydrated, motivated, and ready to go. I fed the terminal the tributes and the artifacts, and we were pulled into the boss arena. I noticed my army was looking a little light, so I went back to double check, and sure enough an aloe got caught on the wall, and now a tree. After helping free its comrade, we marched into the arena. I fired off a warning shot and all hell broke loose. Somebody call an ambulance, but not for me. My aloes were absolutely shredding the Dinopithecus King.
Holy crap.
Turned him into shredded cheese.
Wow.
The fight was over in like 2 minutes. Absolutely wild.
This dude got waxed. I don't even think it was a challenge, really. Outside of, like, maybe my primitive armor breaking.
I rushed home and planted my banner of victory. 1 down, 2 to go. I finished off the day with looting an ancient tomb. You know, the hand of fate is often cruel. I have to be better.
Sick, bro.
Epic. Now this is gaming. There! Holy crap! I found out just how powerful this weapon of righteousness really was.
This thing is wacky sauce. Dude, I just greased these two. Oh my, bro. Oh, what is that?
I started off day 56 by raiding the tomb once again, and this time I got an absolutely nutty long neck rifle.
Go, 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 go.
I abused some of the residents as well.
Got one.
Steady. Then I flew home. I wanted to start the beta boss fight by day 70, so I hit the ground running and headed out looking to get a head start on my tribute farming. After dusting some thylas, I went home and squeezed in a bit more leveling. It was getting to the point where it was becoming quite difficult to level my aloes any further. Day 57. I headed out early to look for some basilisks for their scales, but wouldn't you know it, they weren't spawning. Of course they didn't. So I gave up, put a pin in it, and went for the next artifact I need for beta. This cave looked nice. The contrasting colors were an aesthetic, but this was one of the more dangerous caves I went into. Armed with only a Maywing and a shoddy that could rip holes into the universe, I had to play it safe, remembering the Magmasaur debacle from days prior. I was having second thoughts about going further, but for the sake of content and you, I pushed on. After frantically gliding every which way, I found the artifact by complete accident. I took it and scooped. I went over to the blue ob to grab chips, my Dinopithecus, and stopped briefly to play with Elite Ixith before getting bored and shotting it. Don't worry, I harvested and cooked it for my babies. Nothing went to waste. I flew over to the Aberration Cave and took some element just in case I ran into a good leveled Ferox. I found the artifact, jumped off of chips, and almost bit it. Almost had a really big whoopsie.
No. Oh my god.
If I didn't have my cinema crops, I would be certified dead now. Please don't kill me. After taming a ferox, I named it Fen,
These are awesome.
and I went home. You guessed
There
it,
we go.
another maze run. This time with a vengeance. I took Fen with me, transformed her, and she got stuck in the
It won't
maze.
even fit.
Oh, great. So I proceeded, business as usual. After the run, I waited for Fen to transform back. After she did, I potted her up and ran through again. This time I was out of stamina though. Stepped on a trap and had some serious brain lag, I guess. Because I passed out and immediately got ganged up on by Arthroplura. After saying my piece, I grabbed my Sinnoh and we left. Since I was in the area, I stopped for a moment to grab another artifact from the desert cave. The artifact of the brute was got, and we get before we got. Day 59 was another training day. I wanted to get Fen some good levels, and I used most of the eggs that I had stored. They all hatched, and I couldn't get my Lystro to pet it, so I punched a baby. A sentence I thought I would never have to say, honestly. And things went pear-shaped really quick. In desperation, I whistled aggro all, so I resigned the rest of the day to line up all my dinos once again. Lesson learned. It was time to go seek out more artifacts. This one was my favorite, the artifact of the Devourer. It was in a sunken ship deep in the ocean, and there were countless untold dangers abound. Sounded like my cup of tea, to be honest. As soon as I hit the location, we dove down into the abyss. I put on my scuba tank and began my exploration. Something didn't feel right. Aha! A mosasaur. I gave it a nip with Optimus, and it got the message. I wouldn't want to fight me neither. This other one didn't want the smoke either, so they left me alone. But these pesky megalodons wanted to give me a piece of their mind. I didn't want to talk, so I swam into the ship, thinking he would be safe. I hopped off of Optimus and wanted to go retrieve the artifact, but a Meg managed to squeeze in here with us. Big mistake. Oh, you want some of this too, do ya? Nah, punk! I swam through the sunken vessel and made my way to the prize. After swiftly retrieving it, I got back on Optimus and headed home. I also took care of some of the riffraff. Another day, another maze run. Day 61. Let me put on my glasses here. Let's see. Day 62. My notes say more aloe leveling. And there's a curse word in there. So let's have a small look-see on the video. Yep, that's exactly what's happening, so I'm just gonna move on to day 63. On day 63, it was time to go fetch the artifact of the hunter once again. I decided for some spice, and I went on foot this time. But I had chips with me just in case. There was a Megalania there minding its own business, and well... What? What? I needed the toxin. I need it for the alpha fight. Look, okay, I'm just a helpless human in a world full of things that want to eat me. What do you mean it's just sitting there doing nothing? Whatever. I descended like a bat upon some, well, bats. I was taking care of business and letting my boomstick sing its song. But this Onyx teleported to me, and I got mega rabies. I was mildly scared, but I had a huge health pool at this point, so I just kind of tanked it, honestly. I made it back out of the cave and flew Optimus to the desert to check on some loot drops. I found the armor that I would wear for the rest of the playthrough, minus the pants. As I re-entered the room, I was forced into gladiatorial combat, and well, I won. I was too quick for him, kept bobbing and weaving. Aloes. Leveling. Day 65. Can you say maze run? Yeah, I already did this joke. My arch nemesis, my frenemy, the loot maze. At this point, my army had been leveled, raised, and for the most part healed. I was really just killing time up until day 70. I was flying around until I saw this out of the corner of my eye. A gosh darn raptor caught in a geyser. It was launched hundreds of feet into the air. After playing around, I checked the volcano cave for some potential loot. The crates weren't spawning, so I ended up leaving. I found this Alpha Rex, and remember her for later. Then I decided to do another maze run, my first crate. Do you see this shoddy? It's somehow better than the one I've been using. Day 66, I flew to the Alpha Rex that we had found the day prior. I wanted to test my new arms, so I took chips and ran down the beach. I set a trap, got its attention, stood my ground, and turned it into mince. I felt just like a big game hunter, kinda. Oh my goodness gracious. This shotgun rips. This is Doom Guy's shotgun. Later that day, I wanted a decently leveled Ferox for the beta boss fight. With it only being 4 days away, I set out once again for the Aberration Cave, armed to the teeth, element in hand. I looked out and found this 140 female. My heart jumped into my throat and I needed to clear the way. After taking care of the bystanders, we started taming, and I kinda wanted to test my armor a little bit. I gotta say, I was one thick unit. After some bashing and thrashing, she was cool enough to hang. For the sake of time, I'm just going to skip ahead to the Beta Dinopithecus boss fight. Hold on, before you start throwing your tomatoes, and before you get your torches and pitchforks, hear me out, okay? The last few days are literally me just doing chores around the house. Literally doing nothing. I think the most important thing of note is I built the industrial grinder finally. It only took me more than half of my playthrough, but genuinely, at this point, at this stage in the game, you're just looking for things to do in Ark. So, I'm just going to skip right ahead to the Beta Dinopithecus boss fight. This isn't script, off the cuff, so let's just get into it, okay? The morning of day 70, I once again started the rituals of war. With Shreddy and Dinobot at my side, I fired flares into the night sky, one for each of the brave warriors that would be joining me on the field of battle. As the flares fell, I was confident this time. I knew we would win. The aloes were lined up and waiting with anticipation as I began to start our war chant. We ate a feast and celebrated our past successes. I was content now. After the Beta Dino King, it would be on to the Alpha, and we were not going to lose today. But, unbeknownst to me, in Multiplayer, a Yudi can't auto-roar, so I opted on staying on Shriek for the battle again. I wanted to ride the Ferox, but such is the way of things. We can't always control life. Chips seemed rather sad. I initially didn't want him to come with us because he would be my last Dinopithecus, but he wanted to be into the fight like all the rest. And who was I to deny the youth their warrior spirit? So, I potted him up to fight alongside with his parents. Later, I unpotted the troops and used Shriek's bellows to wake them up. This is a good way to wake up dinosaurs with high torpor, and it actually works. After much screaming, we were all ready. I fired off a shot once again to wake the slumbering king, and we all charged with fury in our eyes. The Dino King wasted no time and went straight for me. A fury burned in his eyes, a deep, primal hatred. In the face of adversity, I couldn't waver. My troops were depending on my resolve. We ran like a well-oiled machine as the aloes fought the king. I did my best to provide cover fire and rid the arena of the grenadiers. Before we knew it, the king had fallen. Shriek let out a roar of victory, and I headed home to place the second banner. Sleep while you can, Alpha King. We're coming for you. Day 71 through 80. I'm going to cram 10 days into one segment. From when I got home to day 80, I was in full go mode. I couldn't rest on my laurels. I needed some kind of aloe saddle blueprint. The clock was ticking, so I headed into the maze. I found some flak leggings that I would use for the rest of the playthrough. I dealt with some bats, and quickly got trapped. But I knew this maze like the back of my hand now, so I escaped quite easily. The maze had become overrun. Proceeding would be a bit more difficult, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't readily handle. When I got home, something was different. I felt compelled to build. I wasn't sure what yet, but I had felt like I was being watched. So I started to farm and build. My body acted on its own, and my mind was in a haze. This continued for the next 10 days. I would slowly build this, what I could presume was a cathedral. I don't know why. On day 75, I started gathering the materials to make a tech replicator. I loaded up Optimus and began flying back and forth. I also started farming the tributes necessary to enter the Alpha Arena. With righteous fury, I smote all who stood before me. I also went to the Wyvern Trench to steal more eggs. My 100 days was almost up, and I remembered my goal, to own at least one of every Wyvern. I dyed my armor silver and gold. I made a tech replicator, and increased my firepower exponentially with this tech rifle. It's unique because it can fire underwater, and I'd need that for possibly the best alpha fight in this playthrough. An Alpha Tuso, or also known as a giant squid. I crafted 2 tech canteens as well. It would help keep me hydrated and cool. I flew over the ocean and descended, and began my long hunt. Before long, I was followed by an Alpha Megalodon, and I used my tech rifle to dispatch it. I noticed that Optimus was under attack by mantas, so I mounted him and fled. I finally found an Alpha Tuso, and there was a problem. I was being chased by another Alpha Megalodon, and my scuba gear broke. Luckily, I thought ahead and made extras just for this. I started the long fight with the Alpha Tuso. And yes, I would be lying to myself and you if I said I wasn't scared. Not only did I have expensive equipment that I didn't want to lose, but if this thing grabbed me underwater, I would be 100% dead. After using hit and run tactics, the Tuso got really close. Too close for comfort, and my heart stopped, but I damaged it enough to make it flee. It almost grabbed me. Had I sat there for another second, it would have had, and it would have been all over. I was beset upon by a shimmer of sharks, and had to pull my attention from the target. I was spread thin. After a long battle, and a lot of chasing, I eventually cornered it. Fired all I had, and it stopped moving, but something didn't feel right. Sure enough, it was a trick to get me to come closer. I fired more shots, and put the mighty beast down. On day 78, I crafted more ammunition, and this tech replicator was absolutely insane. Looking at this now makes my dopamine receptors fire in overdrive. On day 78 was time to go to an artifact cave I had never been in. A derelict prison under a lake. I got really lost. I had never done this maze before, so it was an experience. I was more than well enough equipped to deal with any situation I'd run into in here, but time was my biggest enemy. I spent many hours wandering the twists and turns of this hellish labyrinth. I eventually found the artifacts, and upon picking up the last one I needed, I got this achievement, and was rewarded with my signature bunny ears. After much fumbling around, I managed to find the secret exit, and took a moment to gaze upon the misfortune of a soul that came before me. I returned home and saw Rhymefang giving lectures to the young ones. probably giving them the rundown of the pecking order, I suppose. And after a day's rest and wound healing, I set out in the night to tame Diplodocus for a secret project. On day 81, I stood under the warmth of the tropical sun and watched Diplos make eggs. My life, it was truly the high life. I noticed that some of my dinos had gone missing. I hadn't been inside of the cathedral since its creation, and an unknown force beckoned to me from within. I found myself, before long, sitting in a pew with Shreddy, Yo, Rodan, Dodie? Everyone was here. A pitch-black saber-tooth stood at the head of the church, with Heart and Finn. "Greetings," the saber-cat spoke. "I am Priyanka, the one who has guided you into building this place of worship. I have guided you from the very beginning." I must have had a look of doubt on my face, but Priyanka reassured. "The arrow you fired into the heavens, I heard your call, and thus I have arrived." Priya had explained that Hart and Fen were her disciples, and that we were all destined to meet somehow. She beckoned I approach. I found myself standing in front of all three. Priyanka gave me a blessing, and I went on my way. She also warned me not to go into the basement, no matter what. I left the cathedral, exhausted, and I went to sleep. On day 82, I flew over to the Blue Obelisk and dumped all of the tributes into the terminal, as well as the 4 artifacts I would need. An Alpha Rex had spawned in, and I wanted to take it out with my boss army. And here's the results. Alright, boys, let's get to work. Dude didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. But why stop there? We formed a warband and disrespected the valley below, letting all those who dare attack us know who the real Alpha was. After our fun, I potted up the troops and set them down to rest again at the terminal. I placed a feeding trough as close as I could so they wouldn't go hungry. I took a brief moment to look over all my mutated allos that started my army, and it was a lot. All of these, they helped me get to where I am today. And to wrap up the day, I ran to the desert to tame another Sinnoh. I found this 150 and started the taming process. I named her Fly Guy and got attached. On day 84, I ran into the maze once again, keeping my fingers crossed for a decent allo saddle blueprint. It was at this time in the playthrough that I learned about a mod that not only makes blueprints, but you can feed it really good items and get a copy in blueprint form. I'm not really into mods outside of S+. I think it kind of cheapens the gameplay experience a little bit. But I'll be real with you, and I'll say the temptation was there. It really was. Going into the alpha fight with nothing but primitive saddles and a few ascendant allo saddles sprinkled in here and there wasn't going to cut it. In my heart of hearts, I was once again fearful, and sad to say, I ended the maze run empty-handed. The morning of day 85, I set out to farm some Therid Claws. This Theory hit me so hard that it broke my Ascendant gear. My Ascendant Riot gear. And then it was time to panic. There were a lot of Troodons in the area. I put the Scissor Chicken down and flew back to the Blue Ob to check my artifacts and tributes. It was finally all there. But my gear was seriously in disrepair, so I needed to fix it. I will say this once again, that the industrial grinder is paying absolute dividends. But I lacked the pearls necessary for complete repair of my riot gear, so I set out to farm some off of the coast. The water was beautiful, and I even had a lead accompanying me as I farmed, and it was quite peaceful. It was nice to just slow down and appreciate moments like this. Swimming with giants that didn't want to eat you. Since you all have been so patient with all of my maze runs, I figured I'd give you the rundown on how to complete the maze in a timely fashion. Alright, so check this out. You open the door by pressing a hidden switch. You run down the stairs and fly over the trap with a Sinnoh. If you didn't make it, there are steps on your right that you can hop up so you don't die to the gas. You turn right at the hallway with pillars, and then you turn left and a left into a treasure room. From there, you run diagonally and go down the stairs. You keep turning right and follow the hallway down until you come to the chamber of the fallen king. And then you head right again and fly over the traps. A scorpion may spawn, but don't worry, you can easily jump out of the way. If you don't have a Sinnoh and fall into this pit, there's some steps that you can jump up as well. Head left and stay out of the middle. It's booby trapped. Then head left again. And press the button on the wall with the bloody handprint. Grab the loot and run. You're on a timer. And if you're quick enough, the bats won't spawn. Follow the hall and make a right into the gladiatorial arena. Stay out of the middle and grab your prize. This yellow chest in this hallway is optional. And yeah, that's what I do on most of these maze runs. It really takes almost no time at all. That's why I do so many of them. On day 86, I wanted to create the intro scene from the Lost Island teaser. But I decided to go full send and glide home as well with my Sinnoh. I almost made it, but decided just to relax and watch the sunset over the ocean. And then I finished gliding home. I woke to me plummeting to the ground at high speeds. I managed to pull up at the very last moment. I stood around and waited for my Diplos to grow up so I could enact my secret project. On day 88, I flew around the island looking for mischief, and I quickly found it in the shape of an Alpha Ledixith. I swiftly dispatched it for one thing: the captain's hat skin. It looked terrible on me, but it looked really nice on Fly Guy, and it became her signature look. On day 89, I wanted to get another achievement, the Cure All achievement. I had to infect myself with swamp fever and then cure it somehow. Basically, what it would do is give me a set of really cool glowing eyes. And how could I ever call myself a true 100 Days Ark player if I didn't have the glowing eyes? So I sallied forth with Optimus to a swamp not too far from my base of operations. We made landfall, and remember this Capro. After swimming around for a few minutes, I couldn't find any leeches at all. And as soon as I read the red text, I ran back as fast as I could to Optimus.
No way.
I found him in the swamp mangled. I enacted justice upon the murderer. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I should have just potted you up. And after the reality set in, I flew home in silence. On day 90, I flew out with Rhyme Fang again, and I wanted to tame another Maywing. Honestly, if you were a Maywing or a Sinnoh, it was an occupational hazard to be near me at this point. I found another high level, and I flew home with it so I could tame it in peace. I tranked it out and gave this depressed beach Diplo a purpose in life again. Since we were 10 days out from finishing the 100 days, I didn't care much about the taming effectiveness. I waited Platman to open his eyes, and I gave him Optimus's old saddle, and he'd have very large boots to fill. Day 91 to 92, I was in deep mourning, and dyed my armor black in remembrance. I also changed Platman's colors to black as well, the same with Fly Guy. I flew around the island to get started on my secret project that I've been telling you all about. That's right, I wanted to tame not one, but 2 Carcharodontosaurus.
Whoa, mama.
Alright everyone, don't panic, this is what we've been training for. You stay right there. Don't despawn, please. After spending hours, in real life, not in game, flying around and searching, I had finally found one. I flew home very quickly and potted up the Diplos. This is what we were building up to. I farmed for the trap and headed out. Here. Hey, what's up? I'm gonna need you to clear out, so here's your eviction notice. Glad you are very understanding. Alright, I think... This particular trap was from Nooblets, as well as this Diplo method. I cleared the rocks around the area and set up the trap. I won't show all of it, so you can go watch Nooblets' video if you're curious. The link will be in the description, of course. Oh, I'm so scared. Well, let's wait till he cools down first. Did that get his attention? Oh, yeah. Oh, it did. I'm gonna die. Oh, no way. Holy crap, it worked! It worked. Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
I feel lucky to have...
And after a few noble sacrifices, Rampage was mine. But we weren't done yet. He still needed a pretty lady for my plan to work. On day 93, I spotted a low-level female terrorizing the valley next to my base. I built the trap again. Get the trap built. If I die or anything goofy happens, I'm not too far from home, so... Oh no. No, 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 no. Stay over there. I'm so nervous. Hello? There we go. I got her attention. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. Whoa! Dealt with a Bronto that got too nosy. And after a little while, Liz was part of the family. Yes. Yes. Big success. I flew home with my Sinnoh in triumph. From a previous run in the loot maze, I was gifted a huge Ascendant Carcharodontosaurus blueprint for a saddle. It was mega expensive to make. Very expensive. And honestly, it would bankrupt me. But what else was this material going to be used for? All of my metal, hide, chitin, Everything went into making this saddle. Rampage and Liz popped out an egg, and I waited an entire hour for it to hatch, even with boosted rates. I feel bad for the people that have to do this on vanilla servers. There ain't no way. The last 7 days, I would be gathering the resources necessary to craft this saddle. It was a tall order, but I'm certain we could see it through. On day 94, the egg hatched, and I named this baby Grimlock. I know Grimlock is a T-Rex usually, but Grimlock is the strongest, and he's mad all the time. So therefore, in this universe, this Kakaro is Grimlock, because the T-Rexes in Ark are kind of wimpy in comparison. I did change his colors to match Grimlock's color palette too, as best as I could. Day 95, I don't like AFKing a whole lot, but it makes for some neat time lapses. So here's a time lapse of Grimlock growing up at a healthy rate. Squeezed in another maze run. 2 weeks of playtime, and over 100 hours in-game for this playthrough. And the only thing of note that I got from all these maze runs is this current shotgun and my current armor set. We're going into the Alpha Dinopithecus boss fight with nothing but a wing and a prayer, my dudes. Wish me luck. I think I'm really going to need it. But after the end of day 99, we'll find out who is the true alpha of the island, me or that stinky monkey. And went back to watching Grimlock grow up. On day 96, I noticed that Shreddy was looking really lonely. I felt really bad for him, because in just a few short days, I wouldn't be around to keep him company anymore. Dinobot really wasn't one for deep conversation either, so I dedicated the day to finding Shreddy a mate, a strong one that would command respect, and keep Shreddy on the straight and narrow. He would be inheriting my island after I was gone, of course. After flying around, I found this 130 female and stole her away to the highest castle in all the land. After a few darts, 2 if you're counting, 3 if you didn't see the hit didn't register on her, she went to sleep. I flew around for a while to keep myself occupied, and decided to look at my old stomping grounds as well. I dealt with this alpha raptor and headed back to tame the female. I named her Adian, and went home for the rest of the day. On day 97, I watched a really nice sunrise, and yeah, it's a video game, it's not real. But sometimes you just see stuff in this game that just fills you with some kind of awe and inspiration. After the sunrise, Shreddy was finally getting married to Adian inside the cathedral. Pre-married them. She technically was the only priestess on the island as far as I knew. Shreddy looked over at me nervous, but I assured him that it would be alright. Shreddy and Adian made an egg, and after it hatched, we welcomed little Ren into the world. On day 98, I spent the day with my tames, and regaled all the wonderful times we had together. Of course, Piccolo, Hummus, Optimus, the unnamed Sinnoh were always at the back of my mind. On day 98, there wasn't a celebration. No fireworks, no pageantry. We all gathered one final time on the shores of my little island. Stricken with emotion, I picked up the harmonica that was sitting on my desk and just played. The sun set for me. Tomorrow we would face the Alpha. I pushed the fear out of my mind and enjoyed the moment. We all huddled together and shared this memory. I could hear Shreddy softly crying in the back. He wouldn't really admit it, but honestly I was gonna miss him. He was my first tame, and there's sort of a bond you grow with your first tame. He'd have a lot of responsibilities now, but I know that he would just rise to the occasion. I took a moment to say goodbye and got some sleep for the day ahead. Enough with the sadness already. We're already here. Let's get the fight on. I'm gonna spank this monkey one way or another. Do you hear me? What? You can't use your tech rifle here? At some point in the battle, I dismounted Shriek to help with the flying grenadiers, but I accidentally mounted an Allosaurus, and it was at this moment that the battle turned. I am certain it was this where the scales tipped from into my favor to spiraling horribly out of control. She's getting pulverized, man. Dang it. Reload. Why won't you reload? Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. We were divided. That was for certain. I took what little troops I had left and I ducked into the cave. This was where we would make our final stand. What are you doing? Let me up. If I were to die here today, I would die swinging. I would die on my feet like a man. A man playing a woman in a game made for teenagers. Do you hear me? I was not going to succumb. I had a grenade chasing me. Another aloe fell. And another. Soon it was just me. And well, oh no. Yeah, the king didn't even finish me off. It was his henchman. No. Oh, I'm shaking. Oh, I was sure we had that in the bag, man. Oh, but at least crappy. I died trying. When I come back to the Lost Island in the future, I will not succumb again. That I can promise. I spawned in on the beach and immediately got to work harvesting the basic resources necessary to make the Ark starting tools. Stuff like fiber, thatch, and hide, and I crafted a stone pickaxe, hatchet, a spear, and a torch, and wasted no time putting the smackdown on some easy prey. When I opened my inventory, this started to happen. I don't know why it started happening, but it just did. I noticed this leads caught in the shallows and took a moment to gaze at the sheer size and the majestic creature before me, before punching it in the nose and stealing some of its flesh to feed me, of course. I wasn't done with my reign of terror though, because a few seconds later I started chasing chickens and personally saw to their extinction firsthand. Before long, I could craft myself a bow and arrows to better defend myself, and I started walking down the beach looking for a parasaur because they're a great first day tame. I found this group of dodos and began the peace negotiations, and liberated their meat and hide from their bodies. Not because I needed it, because I was bored actually. I eventually found this low-level para, but it was just gonna have to do. So I bullied it and began smacking it with my bow to knock it out. After our new para friend tamed, I made a raft to move faster and safer along the coast while I searched for cinema crops to tame, and for some reason my raft began to drift. Not like going adrift at sea, but like the initial D kind. Instead of fixing the superior Ark game, they made Ark Survival Ascended, and expect us to pay $30 for cowboy chaps and a flying dinner plate. Anyway, I spotted 2 tech paras on the beach, and I tried to tame them because I wanted easy metal production later. And nothing is easier than forcing tech dinos to produce infinite resources from the safety of your base, right? Well anyway, I caught this level 174 tech para, and started to spank it, but it eventually got free, and ran right into a raptor. The raptor could have it, so I just left it to its fate, and I got back on the raft. After sailing the open water for a few minutes, I made landfall on this tiny island, and made a little camp for myself so I could cook some meat, and rest for the night. Oh, I also tamed this low-level PT, but I'd never use them. On the start of day 2, I was accosted by a pair of dilos that got turned into resources, and some ants that did the same. To my surprise, before I got turned into breakfast, the ants had run away. and I acted fast to take at least one of them down. This chitin would prove to be very useful later on, because I wanted to tame a Sinnoh. I said goodbye to my para and my PT, and hopped on my raft, because I decided I wanted to make my first starting base in the grasslands. Traveling to the location took most of the day, and I had to abandon my raft. Cutting through the center of the island would have been a lot faster than going along the coast. Little did I know at the time that my raft would grow up to have abandonment issues and have trouble forming normal relationships with other people. But this story is about me and not my raft. I started running across the lava-ravaged landscape on foot, and I almost got killed by this magmasaur stepping on me. The damage from the magmasaur and the crippling heat left me a broken man. So I hightailed it into the verdant plains, and as the sun was setting, I made it to my target destination, and began setting up a small base for myself. Using the resources I had gathered earlier, I made a forge and placed the metal lovingly in the oven to bake them for the rest of the night. Then I ran to the swamp to farm some crystal, and I got jump scared by this stupid titanoboa. I did get away though. I stayed close to the swamp into day 3 and farmed animals for their hide. When I gathered all that I would need for a good while, I decided it was time to return to camp and get myself some much needed upgrades, like metal tools and a spyglass. With my equipment upgraded and my body replenished, I ran back down to the swamp and decided to tame my first Sinnoh. After searching for a few minutes, I found this little guy hanging out by the side of a cliff, and all I had to do was just stand still, and I waited for him to approach me. After a few feedings of chitin, this little dude joined the Glam Fam, and I dubbed him Wingman. I put Wingman to work and took the alternate route to get out of the swamp, and headed back to base. The metal I had been preparing was finished, and I upgraded from rags to a fresh set of metal armor. I was ready to venture into the grasslands to find myself a Maywing finally, and I wasn't too particular on the level right now, just any Maywing would do. The Sinnoh was fine, sure, but I wanted something with a little bit more speed and heft to it. This level 20 was asking nicely to be tamed, so I shot it in the eye with an arrow. It eventually went down, and I waited patiently for it to tame. I did keep an eye out though. I knew cars and gigas spawned in the area, and I didn't want to go back to the loading screen, if you feel me. The area was free from danger, and the Maywing tamed. I named him Quaffio, and together we ran back to base because I forgot to bring a Maywing saddle. Before long, we made it back, and we were airborne lickety-split. Of course, I am playing on boosted settings, so a day 3 Maywing is fairly normal for me. I'll have the settings linked in the description below. Quaffio was my early game berry farmer too, and we set out farming as many narco berries as we could to make even more narcotics. My plan was to tame a better Maywing and have myself a breeding pair. I set out looking for a way better Maywing, and this 130 caught my eye, so I tried to set up some billboards to trap it, and of course, everything goes perfect on the first try every time. I managed to get the Maywing stuck under 3 billboards, and I started to knock it out. Kept my eye out for Ovis. Of course, when you're looking for one, you can just never find them. But I did find this Sarco fighting some Kentos. I scavenged the remains for some prime meat, but I only got one. One whole prime meat out of this Sarco, and that just wasn't going to cut it. So I flew around looking for some Ovis. Luckily, a small herd of them had just spawned in, and well, you can probably imagine what happens next. I fed our new platypus friend the mutton, and before too long, Taco Tuesday rose for action. I found another Maywing. This one was max level, and I had to tame it. So you already know how it goes. Billboard, knock it out, tame it. I named this one Spaghetti. I needed to make some cryopods at some point, so I headed into the desert to hunt mantis for organic polymer, and a few seconds after landing, this happened. Now I was stranded in the desert, and the only one to get me out of there was myself and Wingman. So I started running, gliding, and island hopping back to camp. By the time I made it back, it was already day 5. I spent the start of day 5 flying around the Lost Island looking for tech dinos, mostly for some easy oil and other materials. So, to spare you 40 minutes of me flying around looking for tech dinos, I just dove into the ocean, and I harvested some really easy. In hindsight, I probably should have done this sooner and saved myself a bunch of time. After I gathered the oil I needed, I flew to a supply crate and crafted some cryopods. While flying back to base, I noticed a group of aloes stacked up on top of each other, with a 150 wrapped up in a pretty bow. I didn't have the supplies to tame it, and I ran home to get set up. Came back and tamed it in a peculiar way. Whatever. It works. The only problem with taming the prize aloe like this, its clingy boyfriend wouldn't let her go. So I did what I had to do.
and with the spare mutton I had, I threw it into her inventory and waited very patiently for her to tame. After waiting for half the day, I named her Saris, and potted her up, and scouted around for a more permanent base location. I didn't want to settle on a spot that I've done in a previous playthrough. I chose this nice spot by the river. I unpotted Saris to stand guard, and flew back to my starter base to gather up my stuff. When I flew back, I actually got lost, and I spent a lot of time trying to find my spot. I guess using a dark-colored Allosaurus in a green forest with a bunch of big shady patches wasn't the greatest of ideas, but I did eventually find my base, and I made landmarks so I wouldn't get lost again. Now that I was established, I made some refining forges to start my metal production and placed down a brand new smithy. The next morning, I went deep into the jungle to tame a really high-level tech stego I had found, and I decided to safari tame it for some excitement. While waiting for the stego to tame, I returned to base and made my Maywings breed to get an even better and imprinted one. My imprint settings were a bit broken, and I'd just fix it later. I just needed more Maywings, just in case I'd lose one out in the field. And unfortunately, later on in the day, we would have a casualty, and Wingman died. See, I have this problem with Sinnohs where I forget to feed them sometimes, but this would be the first and the last time this would happen in this playthrough. Hopefully. After raising Maywings, I waited all day for the stego to tame, and when it was ready for pickup, I flew over with the Maywing, grabbed it, and returned to base for the rest of the night. I needed to get my farming dinos up and taken care of, so I flew over to the volcano and found a decent thorny dragon and tamed it up. When she tamed, I named her Chica. The only thing I needed now was clay to make her a saddle. So, I flew over to the desert and began farming. Duh. I also tamed a few more Sinnohs so I could breed them in case I forget to feed them again. I tamed a few low levels just to get around. And I found this 150 female. While taming her, she must have been attacked by something because the progress bar reset to 0. And, unfortunately, I had to chase her all across the desert. But we eventually got her. As soon as she tamed, I was attacked by a wolf and panicked, so I killed it with the help of my Sinnohs and a cryopod. I guarantee you haven't seen this ever in any 100 Days videos. Guaranteed. Leave a like for cracked Ark gameplay and defeating beasts with cryopods. Let's go. The first thing I did for day 9 was go to the desert maze. Don't worry, in this video I won't talk about it as much as I did in the first 100 Days video I made, because there's only so much to talk about, really. When I got back to base, this annoying Parasaur was wandering around, so I told all of my tames to attack. This was a really dumb idea, because all of my tames chased it over a waterfall, and I lost a few Maywings, like Quaffio, or Quaffio, and an unnamed one. I liked Quaffio. Oh well. I used the materials that I had gathered in the desert to start crafting clay for the thorny dragon saddle. Once saddled up, I took Chica out to gather some wood, and I gotta say, I am actually very impressed with her results. I also wanted a wyvern egg sooner rather than later, so I grabbed my best Maywing, Pizza, and headed out to the volcano to see if there were any good eggs worth stealing. The first egg I saw was the one. It was a 165 fire wyvern egg, which was amazing because fire is my favorite type of wyvern. I looked around to make sure the coast was clear, and I grabbed the egg, and I got the heck out of there. When I got back to base, I made more than a dozen torches to hatch the egg, and before long, I was gifted baby Crimsica. At the time, I was playing a lot of Helldivers, so some of you might recognize this name. She was being very fussy for her first imprinting, so I stood around all day waiting for the cryo timers to reset, because she was always asking for wyvern milk, and I wasn't about to go get any. I'd end up imprinting her a bit later. I wanted to build safety walls around the cliff of my base, so my tames wouldn't randomly run into the river down below. This project went into the night, and it wasn't pretty to look at, but it would have to do. Safety is the priority. Crimsica was finally fully grown, and I used her to fly into the mountains near my base to grab an Anki. This Anki was just going to be the run-of-the-mill standard farming tame, so I didn't really care much about the levels too much. I flew back to the safety of my base to knock it out. Now, the next order of business was getting my house built so I could have a place to craft and hide out. While building, I went for a stilt house to keep bugs and other things that crawled on the jungle floor off of me. I know that doesn't happen in Ark, but I had to at least roleplay a little bit, right? I need to feel immersed. I spent a good majority of the day getting the place built, and towards sunset I moved all of my crafting stations inside. By this time, the Anki was up and ready for action. I took it out for some quick metal farming before calling it a night. I took Crimsica into the desert to farm polymer and kill deathworms to level her up, and I also needed their horns because I was going to attempt to build a polymer farm a little later, with the intentions that I wouldn't have to come back to the desert to keep farming polymer. After a good day of bug stomping, I ended up with an amazing amount of poly. And yes, for clarification, I am using Ultra Stacks, because there are some things that I just won't concede in these playthroughs, Ultra Stacks and S Plus being some of them. It was time to head back home, and the only problem is that Crimsica kept running out of energy mid-flight, so I had to get a bit creative. I would dismount, since wyverns wouldn't land on water, and I flew up into the air with my Sinnoh. And when she'd get some of her energy back, I would just fly towards land, so she could rest. After a while, we made it back in one piece. I still needed a designated stone farmer, and I didn't want to waste time with a Doty, so I went straight for the big leagues. I wanted a Magmasaur. This is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done in any of my Ark playthroughs. I just went in, and against all odds, I managed to steal a decent egg right out from under the Magmasaur's nose. As you can see, I came within centimeters of spawning back at the beach at level 1. When I got back home, I threw the egg down in front of all my forges, and yet it was still too cold. I placed down a lot of standing torches near the forge and finally had enough to hatch my new Magmasaur egg. Right out of the egg, he was demanding ambergris, and I had to teach the young lad that we don't always get what we want in life. A little brainwashing later, and he saw reason. Baby Burninate needed food. So, with Crimsica, we flew back to the volcano and started disrespecting the residents. After a few minutes of wyvern busting, it was time to fly back home, and I would feed baby Burninate sulfur harvested from the bodies of many wyverns. While waiting for BB to grow, I was in desperate need of cementing paste and crystal to craft a fabricator so I could escape the dark ages and join the modern world. And I stole from beavers, and for some reason the beavers that lived in the southern part of the island weren't spawning. I flew all the way home and actually forgot to harvest some crystal, so I took Crimsica and my Anki out once again to farm some on top of this mountain. Finally, I had all I needed to make a Fabby. I still needed to make gasoline, which required oil, and I was fresh out. Luckily, the jungle near my base was swarmed with Textegos. I also made myself a long neck rifle and a ton of trank darts. It was time to start thinking about taming some boss dinos. And while out in the world, I found 2 tech paras, a male and a female, and tamed them up to make an easy metal and oil farm for later. On the morning of day 13, I took Burninate out to harvest a lot of stone. I also ran up the mountain near my base to see if I could get there easily with a Magmasaur for future metal farming. While I was descending back down the mountain, I got ambushed by 2 Rexes, and I stood my ground. These Rexes were slam dunking us back down the mountain, so Burninate and I made a run for it. We managed to lose one of them, and we took down the other. I decided that we had had enough excitement for one morning, and I let Bernie rest for a bit. It was time to build a pen for my tech paras so the babies wouldn't run all over the base, and this took up most of the day. The idea was to build a pair of ramps on an elevated platform, and the fertilized tech para eggs would drop to the ground and incubate with torches, or an AC unit when I finally got there. Now that the structure itself was complete, all I had to do was test it, and it actually worked out pretty wonderfully. But I would make some small improvements throughout the next 100 days. I know this may seem morally dubious, but trust me, they're robots. They can't feel pain. Famous last words. It's only a matter of time before Skynet takes over. Today I had a very specific goal in mind, and that was to find a boss dino. I used Allosaurus last time, and while I do think they're neat, they just didn't quite make the cut. So I had an idea to tame a Theri and raise an army. I flew to the jungle on the other side of the island, since that was the Theri promised land, and right away I spotted a juicy 135 Theri. Apparently, this Rex thought it was really juicy too, because it started to eat it. I could do nothing but look on in sheer disappointment as it turned into Rex poop right before my very eyes. In another valley, not too far away, I spotted this 140 male Theri, and potted up my Maywing to safari tame it. This was a really stupid decision, because this thing was running all over the place, and I lost it a few times in the jungle. My persistence paid off, and it eventually went down, and it took a very very long time to tame. The Theory had finally tamed, but this area was super dangerous and I didn't want to stick around for too long at all. After I got home, I let it out of its cryopod and started farming nearby dinos, plants for materials, and to get some levels too, of course. Later on, I crafted a net gun because I wanted to go tame a Managarmer, to get around the island even faster. I'm fairly certain the Managarmer is one of the fastest mounts around, but I'm sure if that information's correct, you guys will let me know. I also wanted one because I didn't tame one the last time I was here, so why not, right? After crafting the harpoon gun and some net projectiles, I crafted a saddle and headed into the mountains looking for the perfect mana. I found this 135 running around and I sprung into action. The mana unfortunately had picked a fight with this mammoth, and honestly I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to try and net gun the mama. I guess I thought I could aggro the mammoth onto me, but that was the wrong assumption and it actually flattened the mana I wanted to tame. Anyway, a lot later I found this 145 fighting an Amarga, and to give the mana an upper hand I netted the Amarga, and these Sabertooths gave me the assist and finished the fight. After knocking out the mana, the Sabertooths started to attack my Maywing, so I had to send them to the Shadow Realm. I threw some mutton into the mana and before long she tamed and I rode her back home. And honestly, I just had a lot of fun zooming around at Mach 3. I forgot how awesome Managarmers are. After farming a ton of baby tech paras for metal and oil, I finally had enough resources to craft myself a chemistry bench. And I don't feel like padding out the script, defining every small detail that happens in my day-to-day life on the Lost Island, so we're just gonna move right along. I named the female mana I had just tamed Molly after my faithful pet companion. Molly says hello, by the way. She thanks you for the 1,000 likes on my Fjordur video. She did get that cheese. Back on track, I wanted an imprinted mana to ride around for the rest of these 100 days, so back into the mountains I went. I found this level 55 male fighting this mammoth, and I decided to give the male a hand. He got the killing blow on the mammoth and healed up back to full health. Before he could get away, I netted him, knocked him out, and tamed him. And I named him Kite. We all returned home, and I left Kite and Molly alone for a while and decided to build myself some crop plots for advanced crafting recipes. I had an idea to place crop plots on raised platforms to keep them off the ground, and because it looked kinda neat I think. As I was building, Molly actually had twins. The other one flew off into the jungle somewhere, I don't know where he went. But the other one that stayed, I named her Drift. When the day's chores were complete, I flew into the desert and did a quick maze run. I got a stupid powerful long neck blueprint and a really good Bronto platform saddle. The next day I flew back to the grasslands to get more mutton because I wanted to tame some Dinopithecus. Mutton isn't required, but it's the next best thing to kibble, which I didn't have yet. So I flew to the redwoods and found this high level female. After a few moments of mutton, this mandrill of massive size was tamed, and I named her Quinoa. Quinoa was whispering something in my ear. She wanted a mate, and who was I to deny some monkey love? The alternative is that she would rip my arms out of my sockets and eat my face. I found a high-level male, and you already know how this goes. I named this male Robungo. I brought both of them home and finished the day by smelting some living metal. Now that I had a ton of metal sitting around, I decided to get fancy with my irrigation and make it all metal. I spent most of the morning laying some pipe, and if I were a super crass YouTuber, I would say your mom joke is a follow-up. That's not me. When I finished with some home renovations, Drift and I went into the desert to tame some dung beetles. Yeah, I know, they're in the jungle near my base, but to me, this was faster because they're easier to spot against the sand. And when I got back home, I noticed a huge drop in frames, and it was actually my tech para farm. I managed to turn the breeding off and cleaned up shop and noticed a huge difference right away. I left base again to tame a Bronto, since I had that Ascendant saddle. It would seem like a waste not to use it. I found this 150 just chilling and I had to have it, so I started knocking it out, but after a few minutes it ran into the water and passed out, and yeah, you could probably tell how this goes. At least Brontos were a very common dino, right? Haha. I didn't have to look too far for a decent one. It wasn't a 150, but it'll do. And I knocked it out and waited for it to tame. I spent most of day 19 just building. I was making a giant pen for when I would need to level boss dinos. I literally did this all day. So let's just skip to nighttime when the Bronto was ready to tame. Drift and I returned, and that led us all the way into day 20. I threw some Majo berries into the Bronto's inventory. Are they Majo berries or Mayho berries? This debate was never settled. Alright, anyway. I threw some I threw berries into the Bronto's inventory and waited for it to tame. And when it did, I took it home to drop the big fella off. Farmed an insane amount of berries. Oh yeah, I also tamed a Parafiomia at some point. And they're Phiomia, so literally who cares? I won't talk about them that much. I know I said I wouldn't talk about running the maze a whole lot, but this time I got myself a very nice Ascendant Rex saddle blueprint. I know using Rexes are boring because every other Ark 100 Days YouTuber uses them, I get it. But I used Dallas last time, and I have a really nice Rex Ascendant saddle. But man, I would have to be super dumb not to use Rexes when the Ark gods hand me something this nice. This is divine providence. Oh, I also got an Ascending Giga saddle, so that's cool too, I guess. When I got home, I felt that it was time to crop the mop, if you catch my meaning, so I cut my hair. I wanted to craft myself a farmer, and that would tend to my crops so I wouldn't have to. And I eventually wanted to build myself a nanny to help raise babies too, of course. Yeah, I know, I'm a deadbeat dad. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I almost didn't come back with the milk this time. I flew around looking for some really good Rexes to tame. Sadly, a lot of them were pretty bad. So I started killing the bad Rexes, trying to get better ones to spawn in. In the late afternoon, I spotted this 145 female Rex, and I went in to tame her. She was fighting some mammoths, and I waited for her to finish up before I started the safari tame. When she went down, I checked her stats, and they were kinda bad. I wouldn't know if she was a keeper until she tamed, so I flew down from the mountain to find some Ovis. After a really long time, she tamed up and had an amazing melee stat. 398. Well, I'm glad I took a chance with this one. The only missing ingredient was a high-level male. So I did another sweep of the island looking for one, and this went on into the night, but I didn't find any that quite fit the bill. When I got home, I named the female that I had just tamed Roberta. This may be a nuclear take, but I think the Jurassic Park Rex's name Rexy is really stupid. I think Roberta is way better. Don't at me. I put a pin in finding a male Rex for now because I wanted to find a Rhinognatha, so I could take its pheromone gland to lure in a female. I wanted to get one at some point, mostly because I've never seen one in game for myself. I flew low over the swamplands and around the island. I didn't find any. They say they're as rare as Gigas. With no luck, I returned back to base to tame even more Sinnohs because I lost my main one. Yeah, I logged out for a moment, and when I logged back in, she was just gone. Yeah, I don't know. I became the Sinnoh Whisperer in the jungle. When I got back home, I made the highest level Sinnoh's breed so I could have an imprinted one. The next day, I flew across the island to the castle to find a male Rex, and find one I did because this one was a level 145. I parked the Maywing on the top of the waterfall away from immediate danger and began safari taming this male Rex. I took a look around for anything dangerous in the area, and when I thought the coast was clear, I went in to look at the Rex. When all of a sudden, this Carno literally materialized out of the aether, giving me the jump scare of my life. I hopped on my Maywing and led it away from the Rex, and I quickly flew back home to gather some mutton that I had stored away. I fed the big fella, and before long I had my male Rex. And he tamed out with some very impressive stats, 405 melee and 7,000 HP. When the sun was going down, Drift and I headed once more into the desert to farm organic polymer. While jumping around with Drift, we found a 150 female Rex and I had to tame it. When she tamed, she had a very good health stat. Oh yeah, I also tamed this Tech Rex because why not, I guess. Then I literally did nothing for the rest of the day while I was waiting for it to tame. In the morning I did some metal farming and had enough to craft myself an industrial cooker. I also made a lot of cryopods to keep my base organized. I had a lot of dinos scattered around the shop and I wanted to keep things tidy. I had some caving coming up, so I picked a Dinopithecus that would be my designated caving dino. And well, this one fit the bill. I named him Kakarot. Then, later in the afternoon, I also placed an industrial grill to keep up with all the raw meat. Today was dedicated to running the artifact maze here on the Lost Island, mostly because it was next to my base. And for me, it's arguably the most difficult set of artifacts to get on this map. Once preparations were completed, I hopped over with Drift and submerged into the dark waters once again. The last time I was here, I did this maze on foot, so this time I wanted to see if having a tame would make it a lot easier. There were some pros and cons. The pros first. Nothing would attack me since Kakarot was a Dinopithecus, and if you didn't know, these guys have the threat level of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Almost anything on the Lost Island ignores them. The cons. You would get stuck on walls and stuff, so I did a balancing act of traversing the maze on foot and on the back of Kakarot. Well, the last time I ran this maze was a year ago, so needless to say, I got very lost. And after wandering around for a bit, I found the first artifact I needed. And after struggling with the puzzle room, I got my hands on the final artifact, and I would never have to return to this horrible place again, I hope. By the time I found my way out of the maze, it was already day 27. Before bidding this place adieu, I gathered some black pearls that I would use later, and I returned home to drop off my loot and make some much needed repairs. My armor was almost non-existent because of the Arthropleura in the maze, and I didn't stay too long at base because I wanted to keep the ball rolling hunting artifacts. I had the next one all planned out. I wanted to get the artifact of the Devourer, and it was in a sunken ship on the bottom of the ocean, so I made myself a few scuba tanks and set out to claim it. When we got to the location, I dove into the dark waters and began my search. It didn't take long. I found the ship and entered the captain's quarters, and upon breaking the floorboards, I grabbed the artifact. Then I swam back to Drift. Since I was close to the desert, I decided to do another maze run for potential loot. Most of it was just junk until I got this amazing blueprint for flak gloves. Then I just returned home, and I quickly crafted this much needed upgrade. Today I had the mission of taming some mantis. In my first 100 days video, I mentioned taming them to make an organic polymer farm when I came back, and I wanted to put it to the test. So, decked out in full ghillie armor, I sprayed myself with some bug repellent and started force-feeding mantis deathworm horns through their business end. I got super lucky and found this 150, even though honestly level didn't matter too much because I'm just saying this now, these mantis that I'm taming will not have a very good life. When taming this low-level female, she aggroed all of the aggressive desert dwellers in the area, and we had a slight scuffle. Knowing my luck, I thought she would die, but by sheer stroke of luck, it was on my side. We came out of that fight pretty rosy, I'd say. And of course, maze run. Amazing compound bow blueprint, check. I will say, using the compound bow is a lot funner than using a crappy shotgun, and I'd use one for the majority of this playthrough. Comment compound bow supremacy if you agree. On day 29, I started gathering more artifacts to add to my collection. Here I snagged myself the artifact of the pack. I was still wearing ghillie, and I had bug repellent in my inventory, so it made running this cave an absolute breeze. The next artifact on my list was the artifact of the hunter. Once again, traversing this cave was a breeze because of my current kit. I found this Megalania just chilling, and y'all know the drill. When I got to the artifact location, it just wasn't there, and I took my frustrations out on this other Megalania. I decided to do a few laps around the cave to see if it would spawn in. Nope. I also tried to dispatch this third Megalania, but karmic retribution caught up with me because I contracted a horrible case of mega rabies. The bigger, stronger, older brother to normal rabies, I guess. And I wasn't going to be leaving with the artifact, so I just spawned it in. Who cares? I didn't let that stop me, however. Drift and I jumped over to the Aberration Cave to grab the artifact of the Strong. In the deeper part of the cave, I encountered a very close brush with death. You see, bug repellent repels bats and bugs, but it doesn't repel raptors, and if you know anything about aberration raptors, they have this very annoying ability to pounce on top of you and stunlock you as they chew you to death. With my Sinnoh, I got a little bit too close to the ground, and a raptor managed to teleport to me and knock me out of the air. At the very last second, I managed to clench my cheeks and hold spacebar for dear life, saving myself from certain death. I killed the raptors and switched over to my flak armor. Deeper into the cave, I grabbed the artifact of the Strong and fought my way out. By the time I left the cave, it was already day 30. The very next day, I was doing the swamp hop when I stumbled upon this male Rhiniothatha, so I killed him and took his pheromone. If you didn't know what this is for, I will explain it very briefly. It attracts a female Rhiniothatha to lay eggs inside of your tames. The tame then gestates a baby Rhiniothatha inside of its gut. And when the time is right, a baby Rhiniothatha will explode horrifically from the innards. It sounds pretty gruesome, right? Well, that's because it is. I just so happened to know where a female was, and I had a Bronto back at base that I was going to use to raise the baby. Once back at base, I began prepping myself for this monumentous task. Full disclosure, I am playing on boosted rates, so a baby will spawn very quickly. On a normal playthrough, it wouldn't be this fast. I crafted a net gun, net projectiles, and a few assault rifles. Once locked and loaded, I potted up my Bronto and headed to the female's last known location. Soon enough, I found her and sprang into action. I also had a huge leech problem. They weren't attached to me, they were attached to Drift, but for some reason they followed me around. Once I got the Bronto set up, I flew over to the female to get her attention. Quickly, I dove onto my Bronto for protection while I steeled myself for the next part. Once she de-aggroed, I shot a net gun and began chipping away at her health, very, very carefully. And once she was ready, I made my Bronto eat the pheromone, and the miracle of life took effect. I didn't have anything to help with my Bronto's cravings, sadly, so I just stood back and watched the magic happen. After the baby erupted from my Bronto, Mommy came back and she was very angry and started attacking the baby, so I had to put her down. Imprinting was easy, he just wanted a cuddle. Once potted up, we headed back to the safety of home so this little guy could grow up good and proper. The morning of day 31, the baby Rhino Natha had fully grown, and I decided to level it with tech para babies and mantis babies. When I was done with that, I wanted to run the volcano artifact cave on the back of my Rhino. I made my way over. I'm not sure what compelled me to land in the swamp, but oh boy, I almost paid the ultimate price for it. The Capro managed to snatch me from the safety of my Rhino's saddle. I can't really explain what you're about to witness, so I will just let you watch the footage. Yeah, you just witnessed stupidity in the highest action. After that sudden reality check, I headed back home to repair my gear and heal up a bit before I headed out again. While flying over to the volcano, I wanted to tame a snow owl. I had plans to tame an Amargasaurus at some point. I didn't really bother with one in my last 100 days on the Lost Island, so you already know the drill, yada yada. I also found some ovis for mutton, and then I waited for this little birdie to tame up. For some reason, I abandoned the idea of running the volcano cave for now and ran the swamp artifact cave instead. You know, the one with the big ship inside. Apparently, the Rhino works really well in here, and I made it pretty far, but eventually I had to continue on foot. I grabbed the artifact and left. There's really not much to it, honestly. When I left the cave, I had found another female Rhino Natha, and upon seeing me on my Rhino, she stuck to us like glue. Seriously, I could not shake her no matter how much I tried. I eventually got tired of her nonsense, so I began attacking. Apparently that was enough to make her go away, so all is well, I guess. I'd prefer not to kill the female if I can. I might need another Rhino at some point, you know, in case the worst happens. The next cave, I couldn't take my Rhino in, sadly, so I just had to go full send on foot. After fighting my way through hordes of bugs, snakes, and spiders, I grabbed the artifact of the Skylord. What do you want from me? That's literally all that happened. The main mission for today was to find a really good female Theory for my male back at home. I needed a stupid amount of hide for the Ascendant Rex saddle blueprint that I got on day 20, and Theories, as far as I know, were the play. I'm sure if that information is incorrect, someone will, well actually, me in my comments, even though the video is finished and it's a few months old by this point, probably. I eventually found this 130 female in the jungle near the mountains, and I decided she'd be good enough. So I got to work knocking her out. On day 33, I decided to just take it easy today and do some chores around the base and breed dinos. I also ended up taking down my starter structures, made a lot of vaults to properly organize my treasures. For real this time, you guys, I actually stayed organized in this playthrough. Can I get a W in the chat, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, by the way, shameless plug, I live stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday starting at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there. You don't want to miss it. The baby Theory for the two Theories I tamed a few paragraphs ago finally grew up, and I named her Slap Chop because it makes sense to me. We went out to farm some hides, and she was really good at her job. She was literally made for this. Anyway, later on in the day, I needed to go farm some metal too. I'm not a mathematician, but 16 Ascendant Rex saddles times the amount of hide and metal as well as fiber needed to craft all of them would equate to about, let's see, cubed, squared, a lot of materials. When we returned home, I wanted to experiment with my Rhino and my Magmasaur. Rhinos can carry fully grown Rexes, of course, so why not a Magmasaur, right? And to my surprise, it actually worked. So with my Magmasaur and my Rhino, I farmed metal nodes for the rest of the day. Rhinos have to be one of the most busted tames in Ark right now, I swear. When I got back home, I did more breeding and hatching. I normally skip over this since y'all know how breeding boss dinos goes, but cracking a lot of eggs open at once will always be satisfying. And so is this. As you can imagine, making a Rex army was going to require a lot of meat, and I needed one of the best meat farming dinos around, which was a Giga, I think. I don't know, dude, I just work here. So I set out scouring the island looking for one. I'll just tell you right now that I didn't find any. And I did a dino wipe. My search for Gigas continued all the way into day 36, and my prayers were finally answered. I found a really good level Giga, and set up the trap, 2 bear traps and 4 dino gates, the gold standard for taming one of these things. The only hard part about this process is actually getting the Giga into the trap, which I struggled with for some reason. After a few gnashes, we got the Giga in the trap eventually, and of course, knocked it out. Then I searched for an ovis, so I could mutton tame this monster. I found some near the cliffs and the grasslands and quickly hopped back to the slumbering giant. I made it back just in time too. It was losing torpidity quickly. The Giga tamed shortly after, and this doesn't matter much in single player worlds, but I tore down the trap just because. When I got home, I saddled up the Giga and farmed an obscene amount of raw meat to feed my Rexes. Oh, and I named the Giga Walter too. You know, get it? Walter Bite. Oh man. After I was done farming, I removed my old terrible forges and replaced them with 2 brand spanking new, state-of-the-art industrial forges. It might be a bit overkill, but 2 is better than 1, and that's what they say. Day 37. I didn't do much today. I just bred boss dinos. So it is written, so it shall be done. Into day 38, I was finishing up breeding for mutations. I had a really good melee and health line going, and the lesser important stamina. The red-headed stepchild of my Rex line, who cares? I felt pretty good about the progress I was making and decided to just take it easy for the rest of the day. I needed a lot more metal for Rex saddles, and I traversed the land searching for metal nodes, and I got busy. The footage is just me farming metal. I don't really know what else to say about it. Could just, you know, keep talking, just yap away. I don't know the exact number of baby Rexes that have been blended for my amusement, but what I do know is my raw meat was running low once again, so I hatched a plan to get a lot more meat. This is probably a common method, but at the time I had a 500 IQ moment. The plan was simple: take Walter the Giga out to farm meat, of course. I would consume a rare flower, angering nearby dinos to attack me, and then I would just use Walter to clean up shop. And that's what I did all day. Just farm meat. Man with his pet Giga, bonding over wanton mayhem. On day 41, I went into the swamps to have that female laying egg inside of one of my fodder Rexes, so I could get another rhino baby. I didn't have everything on the cravings list, but I did have some stuff to help me out with those cravings. Basically, what a craving is, when your dino of choice has a baby rhino natha gestating inside of it, the host dinosaur will become hungry for a random item. This may include stuff like kibble, all the way to gasoline. Anyway, since I already did the rhino taming process, I'm just gonna skip to the part where it lays the egg inside of my Rex. My Rex was asking for exceptional kibble, which I had an abundance of since I was breeding a ton of Rexes. Wow, amazing. I managed to get one craving down, making this new rhino baby slightly better than my other one, and it was quickly replaced. While my new rhino was growing up, I flew into the desert at night to check on loot drops and of course, on the maze. I found myself in the swamp yet again today. I needed to farm rare flowers and mushrooms to make advanced recipes, mostly shadow steak saute, which will help me with ranged DPS. Using a theory to farm mangrove trees is extremely effective at gathering mushrooms, and by the time I was done here, I had around 1,000, on top of a large amount of rare flowers and plant X seeds, which I would never use. When I got back home, I started crafting soups as well, because I wanted to tame an Amargasaurus. It was time. I finally was ready to take on this monumentous task. I did not go out and tame an Amargasaurus. In fact, I wanted to see just how crazy my new compound bow was, and ran the artifact of the Hunter Cave once again on foot. I was LARPing as Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Sure, my Ascendant shotgun probably did more damage at the end of the day, but using a bow is 1,000 times more satisfying and fun. That's what this game's all about, right? Fun? I grabbed the artifact of the hunter and left the cave. My day did not stop there, however. I still needed to farm tributes to fight the Dinopithecus King on Gamma, Beta, and eventually Alpha, so I started gathering them up. Well, yeah, I threw away the artifact I spawned in. It didn't feel right. You're welcome. Since I was going to tame an Amarga here soon, I needed to make a few sap taps, ultimately to make veggie cakes. So I made about 8 sap taps and headed to the closest redwood tree I could find. I used my Rhino and Sinnoh to get a tap. When that task was complete, I flew with my Theory, Slapchop, and my Rhino Buzzkill. I named the Rhino Buzzkill, by the way. I heard you could get sap from farming trees in the desert, but I didn't find any. I'm sure I did this wrong, and I will admit when I make a mistake. Enjoy it while it lasts. It won't happen again. Day 45 apparently does not exist. I probably forgot to hit record. When we cut to day 46, I had a Tyrannus in my clutches, and it was nibbling away at Buzzkill. I guess I found a decent level in the mountains and decided to fly with it back home. And it was a process to get back since Buzzkill's stamina depleted very quickly, and I had to land in the redwoods. It could have spelled disaster with all the Dinopithecus that were wandering around, but hey, I managed to escape with my cargo intact. Also, I just noticed an Amargasaurus sitting there at my base. It's been a month since I last looked at this footage for this 100 days video, and I guess I tamed it on day 45, but day 45 doesn't exist. I dropped the UD off in the Thunderdome and began to tame it on foot. I've done this sort of thing more times than I can count, which isn't very high, but just know that I knocked it out. Now to get down to business. To make a full 19 Ascendant Rex saddles, I had the tall order of gathering well over 70,000 hide. Needless to say, I had my work cut out for me for the next few days. Slapchop was ready and willing to accept her new challenge head on, and we got to work. For the rest of the day, it was just on site with anything that was unfortunate enough to cross our paths. So enjoy this brief montage of Slapchop and myself turning things into shredded cheese. Alright, so on day 47, I don't really have anything much in my notes. It just looks like I've tamed another Amargasaurus. By the way, here's a cheat code for taming an Amargasaurus. Just fly into the volcano zone. And here's another wild strat. You don't have to stay in the volcanic area. You can just leave and go into the grasslands and kill Sarcos and Raptors, and it counts. And I got this Amargasaurus tamed up, no sweat. Literally the easiest tame. Easiest tame. Oh yeah, I also tamed a Daeodon, mostly just to heal my Rex army. It doesn't have much of an impact on this playthrough, I just want you to know that I got one. And on day 48, I leveled boss Rexes. I'm not going to talk about it much. On day 49, I got the last of the Rexes leveled, and the Yudi. But I did need more healers, so I went out and tamed a couple more Daeodon to help out with this monumentous task. On day 50, it was time. It was time to fight the Dinopithecus King on Gamma. Would I be able to take on this monumentous task? This fate that was bestowed upon me. This was a life or death situation. The Dinopithecus King in the arena for the... How many times did I fight this guy by now? For the 4th time. When I went in, I was scared. But then we just actually killed him really easy. It wasn't even a fight, honestly. It was kind of like a massacre. But anyway, now all that was left to do was just fight the Big D on Beta and Alpha. On day 51, I went right back to breeding Rexes, and I decided to take another crack at my polymer farm since the last time it didn't go so well. It worked, sure, but it wasn't at the capacity I was hoping for. And on day 52, I went and I got 2 more artifacts and farmed Thylas for claws. While hopping around, I found a 130 female Giga and rushed home to prepare to tame her. On day 53, I tamed that female Giga. She managed to slip out of the trap, and I safari tamed her. It was kind of fun, but unfortunately, this snake ruined some of its taming effectiveness. On day 54, I managed to kill 2 basilisks for their scales, and I got the artifact of the hunter. And for some reason, as hard as I looked, there were no Spinos spawning in. I'm not sure why. On day 55, I raced Bitey, my new Giga, and then I killed Megalodons for teeth. On day 56, I took Bitey out to fight another Giga, and got its heart. The only thing that was missing now were the Spinosails and some Rexes. Day 57 was still looking for Spinos, but they didn't spawn in. I have no idea what's going on with the spawns on this map. On day 58, I took on this insane challenge to try and kill this Giga with a Managarmr, and I won. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, I didn't think I'd win either. On day 59, I didn't really feel like raising brand new Rexes, so I just leveled my backups. I'm sure the saddles would just hard carry them anyway. On day 60, I finally killed a couple of Spinos for their sails. It was about time. Day 61, I built a pig pen thing for the Phiomia and did a maze run. And I got another good shotgun. Day 62, I went into the Aberration Cave, tried to find some Feroxes, but none of them were spawning in, so I just went to the Magmasaur Cave. On day 63, I stole all the Magmasaur eggs I could carry. When I got home, I cried up all the boss Rexes and let them hang out at the obelisk. And that's where the fragments happen. I made the stupid decision to live stream my 100 days here on YouTube and Twitch, and the YouTube VODs are missing, and so are the Twitch VODs, so that's where the fragmented parts come in. The last footage I do have is me fighting the Dinopithecus King on Beta, and I did this live for you guys, here on YouTube. I don't think that Rex is gonna make it in. This is probably overkill for Beta anyway, honestly. All these Rexes have like around 50,000 health to 1,000-ish melee, so yeah, and they're pretty heavily mutated, so I think we're just gonna steamroll this guy. Oh, he woke up! I didn't have to shoot him, he just kinda woke up in a bad mood. Everybody, this isn't a drill. He's right on my cheeks. Forget the little ones, we're gonna fight the big cheese. Oh my god, he's coming. Yeah. He's on his way, everybody attack the giant monkey. Attack the big one. Get him. Everybody, come back. Do not chase the big monkey. Do not chase... I repeat. Do not chase the big monkey. Oh, the AI in this game, I swear. Wow, that's pretty cool, Chad. Thank you. Do not chase the giant ape. I swear to God, I will turn you all into Giga Chow. I'm not even playing. Where did he even go? I don't know where he went. Oh, by the way, I got lucky with a blueprint, so I do have Ascendant saddles on these Rexes. So, they're pretty stacked. That's another reason why I went with Rexes for this playthrough. Everybody, focus down the giant one. Do not chase him across the map. Stay here. Do not chase the giant ape, I repeat. He's right there. Kill him. I need to flee the scene. Please get out of my way. The period key is not working. This fight isn't hard at all, it's just super stressful because the darn AI doesn't listen. But we're making some good headway here, I admit. Okay, now you can chase the big monkey. I don't even care anymore. Just go. Just get out of here. I'm taking damage. This is concerning. Get him. Get that Rafiki-looking bastard. Bite! Bite! Kick and scratch and snarl. Dog, I think I'm dying. I think I'm dying. I'm actually dying. I don't have any med brews on me. I made a huge mistake. I've made a gargantuan mistake by not bringing med brews. Dude, this just got serious. Please, kill him. I'm dying. Please, for daddy, kill the monkey. Yes! Oh, God. We clutched out a win with that one. I'm pretty sure I'm half past dead. Good lord. Good God, we cut that one close. Holy moly. I forgot med brews like a 5 head. Good God. Getting all of my gear repaired is going to cost me a fortune. Yeah, we clutched out a W with that one. Wow. I legit almost thought I was gonna die. Like I said, this wasn't a hardcore playthrough. I just really haven't died yet, and I don't plan on it. If I can make it a 100 days without dying, I'll just like package it as a hardcore video because people like that. Maybe. My last 100 days hardcore video did terribly, but we'll see. Yes, 231. Element. We're Gucci. We're in the big leagues now. I get comments like that on my videos like, oh wow, what kind of 100 days video is this? You're using S+. Shut up, nerd. S Plus makes this game bearable. And that's when the problems start. I was swimming in the ocean, looking for a Tuso to get its tentacles, and then the first crash happened. When I logged back in, everything was missing, and I tried to do a recovery build, and then my PC crashed again. And then I said, screw it, I just want to fight the Dinopithecus King on Alpha. That's the whole point of this video. The 100 days is just a secondary note. And my PC blue screened again, and I got frustrated and uninstalled Ark. So, unfortunately, I could not defeat the Dinopithecus King. I didn't even make it to 100 days.